Don't let mosquitoes ruin your day. Fight the bite by removing standing water on your property. Standing water of any kind is a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Do your part and help reduce the mosquito population.
Visit hcfl.gov/fightthebite.
Good evening and welcome to the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners' second budget public hearing. Tonight there are two public hearings scheduled, one on the Capital Improvement Program or CIP and the second on the fiscal year 25 millage rates and budget. Because changes to the budget could impact the first year of the 5-year CIP, it is appropriate to conclude the budget public hearing prior to concluding the CIP hearing. So this time I'd like to open the CIP public hearing and then entertain a motion to continue that public hearing to the conclusion of the public hearing on the budget. So we can have a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Meyer, second Commissioner Cohen. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right, the purpose of tonight's public hearing on the budget is to take public comment on the millage rates and budget prior to the board adopting millage rates and a budget for fiscal year 2025. In a moment, the budget director will read into the record the change in the aggregate fiscal year 2025 millage rate from the aggregate rollback rate, after which he will briefly discuss the status of the budget. At that point, we'll take public comment. At the conclusion of public comment, the board will discuss any final changes to the millage or budget. If necessary, there'll be a short break while the impact of any final changes is calculated. Finally, state law requires certain information to be read into the record prior to the board adopting resolutions on the millage rates and the budget. So at this time, Kevin, I guess you're up.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Kevin Brickey, I'm the Budget Director. The calculated change in the millage represents a 3.02% increase from the aggregate rollback rate. State law requires that we also describe the reason for the increase over the rollback rate. The budget under consideration tonight reflects in part normal as well as recently heightened inflationary pressures in the cost of doing business. It also reflects the need to provide local government services to a growing population, which includes ongoing funding for transportation and fire rescue services, statutory and contractual commitments, union contracts, technology updates, constitutional officers, and certain other county needs. Commissioners, prior to providing a review of the budget tonight, I will hand over to to Bonnie Wise, our County Administrator, for a few opening words.
Thank you. So as Kevin mentioned, tonight is the second of 2 budget public hearings as required by state statute. This evening, you'll hear a budget update from Kevin Brickey. You'll take public comment. You'll discuss and vote on changes to the budget, including the items that you identified at your public hearing on September 12th, and adopt the fiscal year 25 millage rate and budget resolutions. Before we get started, I wanted to say that I'm exceptionally proud of my team's work on the fiscal year 25 budget. Budgets are a marathon, not a sprint. What I mean is that, yes, the race is long, but what few people see is the commitment day in and day out of the staff who work on this and help us get here. We're getting to the end now, but I want everyone to know that I see and appreciate their daily work that got us here. I also want to sincerely thank every member of the board and our residents for being engaged throughout this process. As someone who has spent their career in finance, I can confidently say that careful scrutiny, honest debate, and diverse viewpoints make the final product stronger. Much like a marathon, it can be challenging, but the end result is worth it. As we near the finish line, I'm confident that the board and our residents will be proud of the fiscal year 25 budget. The process was transparent, and the result is fiscally sound. This year, in addition to the budget overview, we held 3 budget workshops covering public safety, the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund, and the Indigent Healthcare Plan. Additionally, we held 3 public hearings that allowed our residents to provide their valuable input directly. The secret is out that Hillsborough County is the best place in the nation to live and raise a family and start a business. Our population is growing rapidly. As we close out fiscal year 2024, I want to note a few proposed investments that help address the needs of our residents in the upcoming budget year. Under the leadership of our new fire chief, Fire Rescue has implemented numerous ways to decrease response times, including proposing investment in 16 new rescue units to help save lives and protect property. We're also budgeting for 3 replacement fire stations and 1 new station. We're using an innovative land swap approach to save taxpayers tens of millions of dollars for a new modern sheriff's complex that will allow our first responders to continue to meet our public safety needs. We have made unprecedented investments in transportation. This is possible through rising sales tax revenues in recent years and increased interest earnings, which we invested back throughout the county. In fact, the fiscal year 25 budget includes $141 million in new funding for transportation, with $20 million of that for resurfacing. This is by far the most significant investment in many years. The budget includes a millage swap that creates additional resources for the needs in the unincorporated area, which we know has many needs, without a tax rate increase for those residents, while decreasing the tax rate for residents living in a municipality. We continue to fund resources to help residents of all ages thrive, from the littlest ones in early Head Start to the residents engaged in our aging services programs and everybody in between. These programs are proven to be effective and help residents live their lives to the fullest. For example, we budgeted over $10 million in new funding for parks improvements and expansions alone, full funding for the Upper Tampa Bay Trail, and funding necessary to retain a skilled workforce, among many other efforts too numerous to highlight today. We also remain one of only about 50 counties throughout the country of 3,100 nationwide, about 2%, that hold a AAA credit rating from all 3 rating agencies. We are part of an elite group in which you should be very proud. This allows us to borrow funds at very favorable interest rates, which lowers the overall cost of capital projects and helps attract business to our county. We know that many more investments in public safety and infrastructure are needed. We are not blind to those concerns, which is why those are emphasized in this budget. But it does require a balanced, thoughtful approach to meet these needs. We believe this budget achieves that. At last week's budget public hearing, the board considered removing some items from the budget, and we do have the ability to make certain one-time investments to further enhance our community. As a finance professional, I want to reinforce that budget reductions that are one-time in nature should be used for one-time investments. We should not be short-sighted in our approach. We have to look at the next fiscal year and beyond, and we want to maintain a strong financial position to help us attract new businesses, keep our borrowing costs low, and allow us the flexibility in the event of an emergency or to respond to opportunities as they arise. Finally, I want to thank our Hillsborough County employees and to point out this remarkable fact. We continue to run government operations with over 700 fewer employees that we had in fiscal year 2007, even though fire rescue grew by 356 employees in the same period. That year, the population of Hillsborough County was just under 1.2 million people. Today, we're estimated to have over 1.5 million residents. We are able to accomplish this because of our employees' commitment to innovative, excellent, and unwavering public service. I sincerely thank them all. And thank you, commissioners. Now I'll turn it back to Kevin Brickey.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. Commissioners, the budget the board will adopt tonight reflects the tentative budget approved on September 12th as amended by any updates that may be made. The FY25 budget is balanced. Additionally, the county continues to maintain its general obligation AAA bond rating, and the budget you will vote on tonight reflects investments that are consistent with the county's strategic focus. And if we could move into, thank you. The budget environment that we're operating in and looking at building the budget, among slower economic growth and revenue growth, elevated inflation and interest rates. We continue to get good financial results, including maintaining our AAA rating. Many budget investments have been made in this budget that Bonnie pointed out with public safety and transportation. Also, the millage swap that Bonnie mentioned. We also have things that appear every year in the budget as far as employee compensation, inflationary impacts, mandates, and contracts as well. The tentative budget is $10.339 billion. And in the operating budget of about $3.9 billion, the public safety is about 24%. In our countywide general fund, about $1.56 billion. 55% of that is to constitutional agencies and outside agencies. Our unincorporated budget, $829 million. 68% of that is to public safety. We have a capital budget of a little bit over $2 billion, water and transportation being the largest sections of that. Our reserves remain within the board's policy of 20 to 25%, supporting our AAA rating. I'll return to reserves in a moment. And Bonnie mentioned the other considerations that we've had last week on Thursday. The board did ask us to bring back some information on countywide reserves, the Hope Funds, the Future Career Academy, and the Plant City Chamber. So specifically, the board asked to identify potential uses if the Affordable Housing Trust Fund were reduced from the current $10 million funding. In FY24, that funding was $2 million. Calculate the impact of reducing countywide reserves from 25% to 21%, and what is the equivalent millage of that. Consider deleting the Future Career Academy. That was placed on the flag list. And then there was some consideration for the Plant City Chamber of Commerce. This item has been satisfactorily concluded with Commissioner Miller with no net financial impact. In March, when we gave the budget overview workshop, we mentioned our budget guiding principles, particularly looking at adopting and keeping a structurally balanced budget where our ongoing recurring expenditures are funded by ongoing recurring revenues, that there's a match, that we use restricted funds first, and that we maintain our reserves, maintain our assets, service levels, and employees. There are options to create one-time funding. One is to reduce the affordable housing transfer that is currently in the budget of $10 million. It's one-time funding due to the existing ordinance requirements that the county administrator placed that $10 million into the recommended budget. Another opportunity for creating one-time funding is reducing county general fund reserves. If we were to reduce to 21%, that would be a $41.8 million reduction, and that would equate or be equivalent to a 0.2751 mil reduction. However, reserves are considered a one-time funding source that would match to a one-time use. If it were combined with a millage reduction, it would be an ongoing reduction, and that would necessitate reductions in current service levels in areas such as pet resources, emergency management, human services, medical examiner, and/or facility services. Where have our reserves been? Since about FY09, we have been above 20%. It has risen sometimes during strong economic times and declined a bit during less favorable economic times, but we have maintained that 20% at least. It has been about 24%. It did decline to a hair under 24% for FY24, and the tentative budget is at 23.6. The countywide reserves are at 25%. The unincorporated reserves are at about 21%. The unincorporated fund, of course, as Bonnie also mentioned, that is where we have the most challenges in balancing that budget and meeting the needs of a growing population, particularly with fire rescue, law enforcement, transportation. This graph looks at various levels of reserves and how changing the countywide reserve, which is on the horizontal axis, would cause a change in our combined reserve ratio, which is what the policy speaks to and what the rating agencies look at. Right now, the tentative budget is at 23.6. If we were to reduce countywide reserves to 21, that would match the unincorporated fund. We would be at 21%. You can see other various levels there. If we were to reduce to 24%, our reserve ratio would reduce to 22.92. Larger reductions would certainly garner greater scrutiny from rating agencies. Scrutiny that perhaps could lead to a reduction in a credit rating, which would lead to higher borrowing costs in the future. Options to invest one-time funding. There are the 3 community projects that were identified at the July 31st budget reconciliation workshop, the YMCA gymnasium expansion, the workforce affordable housing at Tampa General Hospital, and the Grace Point Mariposa Women's Psychiatric Hospital. Other areas that are opportunities for one-time funding would be transportation. Certainly, in this case, we would need to be mindful that this is from county-wide general funds and that we need to be using it for county-wide purposes. In this case, for transportation, it could be bridges, sidewalks, resurfacing, intersections for county roads that are within a city or have a nexus with a city. The road may be in the unincorporated area, but it's a access road into or out of a city. Pet resources facility replacement, that's a countywide service. There is a project in the FY25 budget for the design of the pet resource facility, but there is not funding for construction as yet. Other countywide purposes could be the Veterans Memorial Park improvements, jail improvements, and the Sheriff's Operations Complex move, regional parks improvements, emergency management. This is the flag list. We did distribute the latest flag list to you earlier today. There was another change that occurred after that. There is an increase or a decrease. Commissioner Miller asked for a flag for the Crisis Center Ruskin location of $20,604, and a reduction in the amount for the Sundance Road resurfacing. With that, Mr. Chair, I would recommend public comment.
All right, thank you, Kevin. We're going to open up public comment. Board members, we have 57 folks that have signed up to speak this evening. Similar to our first budget meeting, I'd ask for a motion for each speaker to be given 2 minutes. Give a motion.
So moved.
Motion, Commissioner Cohen. Second, Commissioner Myers. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-1. Commissioner Kemp voted no.
All right, the first 3 speakers this evening are Gerald White, followed by Mary McKenzie and Nicole McCutchen. Good evening, Mr. White.
Good evening, Commissioners. Gerald White, Hillsborough County community activist. First, Bunny Wise, thank you for the outstanding, well, really superior job related to the budget. It's remarkable that Hillsborough County stands out in such a positive way in the United States. County Attorney Beck, thank you for your work in the County Attorney's Office. I know your work is essential for a solid Hillsborough County. First, I do support the community investment tax, CIT, that will be on this November's ballot, and I want to encourage all the citizens in Hillsborough County to vote for that tax. I think it's a good thing for the citizens of Hillsborough County. I am disappointed in Hillsborough County school system for closing the African American public elementary school, Sylvia Rodriguez Kimball Elementary School, that's named after a former county commissioner. Deeply disappointed in that, and I really believe that the United States Justice Department Civil Rights Division need to take a look a deep look into Hillsborough County school system and see what's going on. I support the Art Center artwork that the Commissioner is pursuing, and it's going in a great way. The African American Art and Culture Center, keep up the great work related to that. You got to keep hope alive. I don't know why the Republican majority commissioners in Hillsborough County is picking on the poor citizens in this county. They're poor Republicans, they're poor Democrats, they're poor independents. And guess what? They need housing, need affordable housing. That $10 million is just a kick in the bucket to $10 billion. Don't take that money away from the poor. I got my Register the Vote shirt on. They take the money away, the commission take the $10 million away, then you take their seat from them in November. They can vote tonight, but you get a chance to vote in November. Let your voice be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mary McKenzie, followed by Nicole McCutchen and Sheila Tribble. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Mary McKenzie. I'm the operations manager for a Tampa area nonprofit called Well Built Cities. I oversee and operate 6 mobile food pantries every week around the city, offering free groceries to shoppers. On Tuesday evenings, I run a mobile food pantry at Uptown Sky Apartments on Fletcher Avenue. You may already be familiar with Uptown Sky Apartments because a large portion of the funds to build this complex actually came from the Hope Affordable Housing Fund. The residents there pay rent on an income-based sliding scale. I want to share with you some insights on the demographics that I serve at Uptown Sky. One gentleman is a single dad to a young child who is now cancer-free, but for many years struggled with leukemia, and it wrecked their family finances. One woman is a wheelchair-bound senior in a multi-generational household who struggles with supporting a disabled matriarch. Another woman is a single mother with an adult son who has a mental development challenge. She told me that they spent years on the edge of homelessness, but now, thanks to the sliding scale income-based rent, she's been able to find stability. Several market patrons are actually middle and high school students who shop after school. And I also have a pair of older women who always come and shop with me, often going through the line twice. They're retired widows who are in need of housing and food assistance. I serve a wide range of demographics at my free grocery market at Uptown Sky Apartments each week, and I would wager to bet that every one of us in this room right now is 1 or 2 lost paychecks away from experiencing a financial crisis, if not financial ruin. As humans, it is our evolutionary duty to extend compassion to other members of our species and ensure that we are all cared for. And if any of us claim to be people of faith, it is our command to make sure that the least of us is cared for. And lastly, if any of us has a head for financial sense, a quick look at the numbers tells us that it makes fiscal sense to construct affordable housing for our city's residents who are in need, because a conservative estimate tells us that access to affordable housing saves minimum $21,000 of taxpayer money per person per year, because it keeps at-risk people off the streets, out of our hospitals, and out of our jail system. At the end of the day, we are paying our hard-earned tax dollars to keep people living in undignified and homeless situations. It makes not only moral but financial sense to create affordable income-based housing. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Got Nicole McCutchen, followed by Sheila Tribble, and then a Reverend Brian Scott. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Nicole McCutchen, and I also represent the 40 members downstairs that are part of HOPE. In the last 2 budget sessions, we discussed how lack of affordable housing will prevent workers in essential sectors from being able to live in the area. This could lead to labor shortages or force workers into long commutes, increasing road congestion, and putting even more strain on our infrastructure. If this happens, the road request backlog might end up reaching Australia. Tonight, I want to focus on affordable housing and its effect on tourism, one of our region's economic pillars. 2 major deterrents to tourism are homelessness and crime. Cities like San Francisco have faced backlash from tourists because of visible homelessness. We must prevent that from happening here. Increasing affordable housing can reduce homelessness, keeping Tampa Bay a desirable destination. High crime rates are also discourage visitors. Studies show that affordable housing helps reduce crime, benefiting the entire community. Research has found that access to affordable housing lowers the likelihood that children will grow up to become adult offenders. According to the Urban Institute, affordable housing developments reduce crime by 6 to 7% in the areas which they are built. Last Thursday, it was interesting to hear that many people who spoke against the HOPE Fund still supported affordable housing. They had just been convinced via some fabricated facts that the HOPE Fund wasn't the right solution. If you, as commissioners, have another way to increase affordable housing in Hillsborough County besides small millage rate adjustments that barely affect property taxes, by all means, make that motion for tonight. But since I haven't heard any alternative solutions proposed in these meetings, the best course of action is to keep the $10 million in the HOPE Fund to ensure affordable housing is expanded in Hillsborough County. This will benefit not only our community, but also our local businesses and our infrastructure. Investing in affordable housing is investing in our local economy.
Thank you, Ms. McCutchen. Sheila Tribble, and then a Reverend Brian Scott, and then Lois Price. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Sheila Tribble, and I'm a member of Bible-Based Fellowship Church and co-chair of the Affordable Housing Committee for Hope. I want Hillsborough County to be the best place to live, to work, and to raise our families. And we want the county to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. And investing in affordable housing will make good economic sense and save taxpayers' money. So I want to urge you to please vote to keep the $10 million in the budget. Let me speak briefly about the economic advantages. One is that this fund brings money to Hillsborough County that we would not have otherwise. Every dollar invested leverages as much as 5 times in additional state, fund, and federal funding. Plus, it enhances our public-private partnerships and our local economy. Another thing, it creates jobs. 100 units of affordable housing can create 80 jobs and 42 jobs from the induced effect of spending. It helps to attract businesses. It also stabilizes families. And as one person just said a few minutes ago, a net saving of $21,000 in taxpayer money per person per year when housing someone who is homeless reduces 50% in the incarceration, homeless services, ER visits, and the Baker Acts. I ask again, please help make Hillsborough County a better place to live. Lastly, it is flawed to pit affordable housing needs and human needs against roads and sidewalks. 97,000 families, seniors, veterans, persons with disabilities
Thank you, ma'am.
Need the housing.
Appreciate your comments. Reverend Brian Scott, Lois Price, and then a Robert Below. And I apologize, I know I mispronounced your name last week too. Good evening.
Good evening, County Commissioners. I'm Reverend Scott, a retired pastor at St. Paul Lutheran Church in Seminole Heights and a resident of Lutz in Hillsborough County. Last week, I focused on a story about a fellow that committed suicide in the Lutz area after receiving an eviction notice and being 2 months behind in his rent. I wish he was the only one, but there are others as well. Lack of affordable housing is one of the biggest problems facing Hillsborough County, and not a week goes by that pastors in this county do not hear from someone in crisis due to housing. So I'd ask county commissioners to ponder these questions in your decision making. I am supportive of $10 million in the budget for HOPE's funding. Why in the county budget, where the $10 million is less than 0.1%, are we talking about, and the lack of affordable housing is getting worse in Hillsborough County? Why are we even thinking of cutting affordable housing for senior citizens, the disabled, the poor among us? One issue that has been brought up by at last week's hearing from a number of folks with the same script that flooded the hearing was that HOPE funds were a tax on burdened property owners and that the fund was a corporate subsidy to developers. Corporate builders are building homes, pricing us out of Hillsborough County and working with HOPE, and are not working with HOPE for affordable housing for the poor. Why is one of the commissioners bearing false witness prohibited by the Bible, and another who lived in a home provided by affordable housing funds now turning the back to the poor, something that Jesus condemned? Why is this the only fund county commissioners want to cut, which benefits thousands of low-income residents? Could the real issue be some don't
Thank you,
want
Reverend Scott.
want less
Thank you,
fortunate
sir.
than
Appreciate your
themselves in the
comments.
community? in
Lois
their
Price, Robert Below, and then Lee Barks. Good evening.
Good evening. I am Lois Price. I live in West Chase. Over the years, thousands of people, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, have gathered at Hope events in support of affordable housing because they understand that we are in the middle of a housing crisis. It's urgent that you set politics aside and be good stewards of taxpayer money by investing $10 million in affordable housing. It makes economic sense and it saves taxpayer money. Someone has been spreading blatant misinformation in order to stir up public anger about increased property taxes. Let's dispel some of that. The $10 million allocated to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund equals, on average, less than $30 per household per year, if that. The $10 million is already in the proposed budget. Cutting affordable housing from the budget won't result in a refund or a reduction of anybody's property taxes. Regarding corporate subsidies, rising rents occur primarily because there is a shortage of affordable housing. Generating more affordable housing requires the services of a professional corporation with experience in building safe, affordable communities. The county routinely contracts with large firms to accomplish tasks like expanding roads. To date, reputable companies have generated 1,200 units of safe, affordable housing. Please visit some of these if you want to see, and the residents if you want to see the value to our community. Finally, I want to make it clear that Hope does not receive 1 penny of government money. Please put partisan politics aside. Listen to the facts, not the fear-mongering. Invest in our community by allocating $10 million in the 2025 budget for affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Robert. And followed by Lee Barks and then Kendall Perez. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for the time. As the others have said, I want Hillsborough County to be a better place to live, work, and do business for all.
If you please state your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, Robert Boileau.
Thank you.
And we want Hillsborough County to be good stewards of taxpayer money. Leaving the money in the Affordable Housing Fund to go to the county's Affordable Housing Department, where they manage the funds extremely well and are able to leverage that money from the fund for multiple projects, getting money from other sources, federal, state, in some cases private money. There's no reason to be raiding this fund. The other thing is, as someone else mentioned, these affordable housing, the creation of affordable housing creates 84 or so jobs during the construction. It also has ancillary effects and produces additional jobs from the result of the housing. This should not be a partisan issue. I urge you to put partisan politics aside and really listen to the economic benefits of investing in the county's affordable housing department. Possible focus, like I said, it brings money to our county. For every dollar invested, it leverages 5 times in additional funds, thereby enhancing public-private partnerships in our local economy. Brings 2 to 3 more bond deals each year through the Housing Finance Authority. Again, money that would be left on the table without this local investment. And attracts businesses. 62% of business executives consider the availability of affordable housing and moving to our city.
Thank you, sir. Lee Barks, followed by Kendall Perez and then Jackie Coy. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Lee Barks, co-chair of the combined Hope Affordable Housing and Mental Health Committee. Investing in the county's Affordable Housing Fund is a win-win-win-win. Number one, you've already heard it brings money into the county, leveraging 5 times, and one development recently has leveraged 10 times the $2 million that the county put up. Number two, it creates jobs. You've heard about that. Number 3, when permanent supportive housing, also known as PSH, becomes possible with affordable housing. PSH is a smaller part of affordable housing for people with serious mental illness and/or addictions that is being used across the country as a highly effective intervention for people with serious mental illness and/or addictions. With PSH, that includes case management to help them get to appointments, take medications, hold jobs, and be productive. People actually recover. We have some in Hillsborough County, but we're short of permanent supportive housing, but we're short 500 units, and that 500 units number is 2 years old. We have more homeless people now with mental illness. With affordable housing, we approach killing 2 problems with 1 stone. Number 4, when money spent for affordable housing, including some permanent supportive housing, can reduce the number of people with mental illness that we pay for. Housing them in the jail, that's 38% of the jail inmates, or the revolving door of hospitalization and release at taxpayer expense. This is an average net savings, you've heard, of taxpayer money of $21,000 to $61,000 per person per year. Some of you have seen this permanent supportive housing in action in Lakeland. Finally, I propose we call this the Hillsborough Affordable Housing Fund.
Thank you, Ms. Barr.
This is a powerful tool for the county.
Kendall Perez, Jackie Coy, and then a Geraldine Rogers Toombs. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Kendall Perez. I am proposing that you keep the $10 million back for infrastructure for the families in Apollo Beach and around Hillsborough County. We don't have any other funds from any government or state officials coming to us for our fixes. And for 3 years, I've been asking for a sidewalk. Don't tell me a sidewalk is not important. Here you go, right here. Should we walk on that street with not even an extra ounce of land, of curb? I mean, and look at the drainage there. For 3 years, I've been asking for 350 feet of sidewalk. I've paid over $70,000 in taxes in the last 12 years, and I got 0 improvements in my community. Apollo Beach is becoming a city. It's no longer the suburbs. You've put everybody down there, but given us no improvements. I do have a heart for affordable housing. Don't think I just don't have a heart. I mean, but we don't have any other outlet to get funds to do our improvements. All we do is pay. We pay all the time and get nothing in return. So, and I want to know, where's the accountability for the $10 million? Is anybody keeping track of how it's being used? That's what I like. Well, I like to know.
Folks,
I like to know.
Please continue.
I mean, I know people are people, but we're people too. And I walk on that every day, on that road. If I get killed, who's gonna look after me? It'll be, oh, I'm just so sorry. But we need to be taken care of too, and don't tell me a sidewalk doesn't count. A sidewalk saves your life. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie Coy, followed by Geraldine Rogers Toombs, and then a Reverend Kieran Jackson Sims. Good evening.
Good evening, County Commissioners. Good evening, County Commissioners and fellow community members. My name is Jackie Coy, and I attend St. Peter Claver Catholic Church, and I am a member of HOPE. I'm here because I believe that investing in affordable housing is not just the right thing to do, it also makes economic sense and saves taxpayer money. This should not be a partisan issue. I urge you to put partisan politics aside and really, really listen to the economic benefits of investing in the county's affordable housing fund. When we invest in affordable housing, it's more than just dollars spent locally. For every dollar we put into this fund, we can bring up to 5 times that amount from state, federal, and private sources. That's money we would not have otherwise coming into this Hillsborough County. These funds strengthen our public-private partnerships and give our local economy a real boost. Investing in affordable housing saves us our money in the long run. When people have stable housing, we spend less on things like emergency room visits, jails, homeless services. For every person we house, we save about $21,000 in taxpayer dollars each year. That number goes up to $61,000 for people who frequently use these services. It makes sense. This is about making Hillsborough County a better place for everyone. Let's put politics aside, please, and listen to the facts and approve the $10 million for the Affordable Housing Fund in this county budget. Investing in affordable housing is investing in our community.
Thank you, Ms. Coy.
And it's something we can all get behind. Thank you.
Geraldine Rogers Toombs, followed by Reverend Kieran Jackson Sims and Lori Jones Aluku. Good evening.
Good evening. Excuse me. I'm Geraldine Rogers Toombs. Why should the board continue appropriating funds for Hope Affordable Housing Fund? Because there's an urgent need for decent, affordable housing. 13.7% of Hillsborough County residents live in poverty. That's approximately 191,000 Hillsborough County households, according to the 2022 U.S. Census. A 2023 study indicated 314,000 children ages 0 to 17 years old live in poverty. Local, state, and federal government agencies utilize tax dollars to assist low-income county residents with affordable housing. Why is the majority of this board wanting to reallocate needed funding from the poor? Low-income citizens pay taxes too. Commissioner Wostall proclaimed he is a passionate advocate for disadvantaged children. Therefore, I think you should have been the leader in pursuing appropriations for the Hope Fund. All children need decent, stable housing. Having decent roads should be one of the board's priorities. However, as previously stated by Commissioner Wostall, it will take over $1 billion and possibly a decade or more to resolve our road infrastructure problems. As previously stated, reappropriating the Hope Fund for a reduction in the millage rate or road construction will have very little impact on those projects. But appropriating the $10 million for the Hope Affordable Housing Fund will have a positive impact on the poor county residents.
Reverend Kieran Jackson Sims, Lori Jones Aluku, followed by Carmen Edmonds. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, administrative staff. My name is Reverend Kieran Jackson Sims. I am a member of your Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. I'm also the senior pastor of Mount Zion African Methodist Episcopal Church of Riverview, Florida, and a resident of District 4. I come to you this evening to express my concerns over the direction that I see the county headed in. I have sent all of you an email message, which I pray that you've had an opportunity to read. It reminded you that just 10 short years ago, Hillsborough County was one of the top counties in the United States for homeless issues with women and children. Taking these funds away from the Hope Fund will only put us back on a path that we worked very hard to get out of in this community. You've heard all the economic numbers given. You've heard that every dollar that you put in leverages $5 additional for the benefit of our community. I beseech you, my brethren, do not put pavement and people against each other. There is a way that we can do both of these things. We have had funding prior approved for roads and sidewalks in this county. Those funds were upended. Maybe we need to go back to the drawing board. And if you desire to remove the $10 million for affordable housing, I ask this board, what will you replace it with to take care of your citizens? You have a responsibility to all of us and not just some of us. May God bless you in your decision-making.
Thank you, ma'am. Lori Jones Aluku, followed by Carmen Edmonds, and then a Dr. Samuel Wright, Sr.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Commissioners. I'm Lori Jones Aluku, and I live in Pebble Creek subdivision. I want Hillsborough County to be a better place to live for my grandchildren. That's just keep it honest. I was here last week, and I sat there thinking, there's no way on earth removing this money is going to decrease my proposed tax bill. I'm smart enough to know that. People calling in obviously don't know anything about how taxes work because my house value went up because of the corporate buyout of the homes in my neighborhoods that decreased my house value. And about those corporate subsidies, let's talk a little bit about that. The county gives funds through contracts to provide services throughout the budget. When the county contracts with the architect to design a firehouse, that's an investment of taxpayer funds to a corporate business to provide a needed service. To get a road paved, the county contracts with the pavement corporation, giving them taxpayer funds for the service. Affordable housing is no different. Contracts are given and monitored to provide the service of more housing that is affordable. It's monitored well by our affordable housing team here at the county. And not investing in affordable housing fund will lead to less affordable housing, bottom line. I just want to say, put partisan politics aside, listen to the facts, approve the $10 million for the county's affordable housing fund in the county's budget, make Hillsborough County a better place to live and work. I don't want to see my son and my grandchildren have to literally move out of this county because they sure can't even afford to live here. Absolutely, they can't, because they live with their mother-in-law.
Thank you, ma'am.
They can't afford to live here.
Appreciate the comments. Carmen Edmonds, followed by Dr. Samuel Wright Sr., and then Jamal Johnson. Good evening.
Hi, Carmen Edmonds, and I had a speech prepared, but hearing everyone talk about all the different issues, I just want to address the board. And, you know, I mean, it's our federal government's a mess, our state government's a mess, and our local government's a mess. And I know it's not the current board. Some of you, even in our federal government, you inherit things that maybe you didn't pass from years ago, and so you're trying to figure out the best way forward. I'm against the HOPE subsidies. It's my understanding, and I don't admit to be an expert in these, but it's my understanding HOPE subsidies already have federal and state monies given to them. So the $10 million
Folks, if there's any outburst, you will be removed.
The $10 million funded by the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners, I don't feel is needed if it's already funded by other entities. You know, some of the false statements last week was that Hillsborough County Commissioners need to provide for the poor and needy, and that was brought on by people of the church. But I'm here to say the church's job is to provide for the poor and needy. That is their job to do, and the Bible is full of scripture calling the church, not the government ever, to care for the downtrodden in society. And so I just feel like some of these issues, the church needs to step up as well, but I also encourage you guys to step up as well. I'm a taxpayer. I'm tired of spending money on tires that get blown, windshields I have to get replaced, and the time it takes out of my day because the roads are a mess, our sidewalks are a mess. We have money that needs to be spent for infrastructure and wastewater management and things that benefit all citizens, not just those that can't afford housing. I can't afford housing. If I were to go buy a home, we rent. My husband and I can't afford a home, and we have good jobs. So it's not just for the poor that can't afford housing. So I'm asking you all, do the right thing, look at the budget, shave the budget for all of us in Hillsborough County. Do the right thing, look to where you can make the cuts and not put the burden on the taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edmonds. Dr. Samuel Wright Sr., followed by Jamal Johnson, and then Denise Herndon. Is Dr. Wright here? If not, Jamar Johnson, and then Denise Herndon, followed by Autumn Williams. Good evening.
My name is Jamal Johnson. I'm a born and raised Floridian and a resident of Hillsborough County. As a tax-paying local, I look to this board as a group of people who are elected to protect the interests of local residents. We can all agree that there are issues with the current housing in this county. That's why we're all here today. We all want a solution to make housing affordable and to accommodate the needs of the people in this county. I share similar opinions with many of the people in this room. Housing prices are affecting many locals, such as some who have spoken here who now have to fight to keep their home. Local residents who are a cornerstone of this community, the ones who have lived here, paid their taxes for decades, should not be the ones who now have to give up their assets because of current economic changes. The question we must ask ourselves is how can we implement programs and policies that aim to lower the price of housing, lower property insurance, and lower property taxes? Saying yes to granting $10 million in subsidies is not the solution. Simple economics tells us why it's not. When you grant subsidies, the money has to come from somewhere, and where the money comes from, it has to be put back. That money is put back by becoming a tax to the locals of that county. The issue is that over the years, over time, that tax increases, and after you look a few years back, you see how great and costly the tax truly was. Also, I want to know if affordable housing developments have less than 50 units, they have been found to have no impact on crime, but larger projects have been found to increase crime. Today, I ask you, commissioners, will you give in to the demands of big corporations, or will you make the changes necessary to make a way for housing to be affordable? Will you protect your residents, the people who voted for you and believe in you, or will you protect the corporations who prey on the vulnerability of hard times? As a believer and a supporter of this board, I beg of you, think twice before saying yes to this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Denise Herndon, and then Autumn Williams, followed by Jennifer Hodeshell. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Denise Herndon. I don't believe we should pit sidewalks and roads against affordable housing. We need to pit it against the African American Cultural Arts Center because that isn't as important as roads and housing and sidewalks are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Herndon. Autumn Williams. Is Autumn here? Followed by Jennifer and then Chris Ann Hall. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Autumn Williams. I am 24 years old. I live, work, and I am a college student in Hillsborough County, Florida. So I want to start by saying that this is not taking $10 million. This is increasing an $8 million burden on the taxpayers. If it's our moral responsibility as people who belong to a church, then I want to encourage to let the church fund it than to put it on the back of taxpayers. So the question I want to present to you today is, why are the churches asking the government to do what the church should be doing? God has infinite resources to take care of his people, and he does not need a government bailout. Housing prices have elevated to an unbearable price in Hillsborough County. And property taxes and insurance has also increased drastically. So I just want to tell you, Hillsborough County commissioners, to please hear the voice of the people today, hear the voice of Generation Z, my generation, and vote no on the subsidies. Thank you for voting no.
Thank you, ma'am. Jennifer, followed by Chris Ann Hall and Kim Howlett. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Hodeshell. I live in Carrollwood in Hillsborough County. I wish I had a huge panoramic photo up there tonight of all the people, of the faces of all the people whose quality of life and sometimes their very lives itself hang in the balance tonight, whose futures can be bettered by a yes vote or crushed by a no vote. Some perspective on the costs of this decision. Quite a few of the older, moderate, original homes in South Tampa, not the mansions, are now valued at $1 million apiece. So the Hope Fund, then, in cost, is the equivalent of only 10 moderate South Tampa homes, 0.01% of the budget. So why, I ask, why of all the line items on this extensive budget did this small Hope Fund that is locally controlled and helps build repair and housing units for the very poorest of our people come under attack, target, and try to be destroyed? Why that line item? Regarding emails, no matter how many of them you receive from the people, paraphrasing the misleading script of misinformation that was presented last Thursday evening, it's the truth that matters. Regarding the Hope Fund, are you simply going to count the number of misleading scripted emails of misinformation repeated by hundreds and then vote against Hope, the Hope Fund, based on those numbers? Or is your vote going to be based upon the truth, a yes vote? Hope has verifiable records of transparency, documentation, and credibility built with this county over years. It is the truth that matters. To paraphrase John Donne, I ask you, for whom does the bell toll?
Thank you, ma'am.
It tolls for the poor and the suffering.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments.
Will
Thank
you offer them a helping hand or vote to crush them?
Followed by Kim Howlett, and then Antoinette Johnson. Good evening.
My name is Chrisanne Hall, and I live and work in Hillsborough County. I am an ordained minister, and I watched the Hillsborough County budget meeting last Thursday. This is so important to me that I'm actually spending my birthday here speaking to you. As a constitutional attorney, I'm going to fact check some of the comments that you've heard so that you can make a wise decision based upon facts and not emotions. Hope subsidies, the statement is the Hope subsidies do not go to corporations because they're nonprofits. This is false. Nonprofits are corporations of a very special class that receive benefits that do not pay taxes, and their corporate donors are given additional privilege in that they do not have to pay taxes on their donations. If donors of these nonprofit corporations do not support the activities of these nonprofits with their tax-exempt giving, why should the residents of Hillsborough County have to provide with their taxes where their donors do not? If they can fill up this room and other rooms with supporters, why can't they fill up their coffers with donors? The other false statement that we need to deal with is that subsidized housing actually lowers housing prices. This statement is based solely on a lack of understanding of how subsidies work in basic economics. Landlords who receive subsidies do not receive less rent. They do not lose money when the tenant doesn't pay the full rent because taxpayers cover the difference. Other landlords then raise their rates in comparison, artificially increasing the cost of housing for everyone based on a guaranteed income the subsidized housing creates. These subsidies do not help anyone in Hillsborough. They work to create the very increases of cost of living they are told we will combat. Help the homeowners in Hillsborough. Don't make taxpayers participate in driving up their own housing costs. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Kim Howlett, followed by Antoinette Johnson, and then Dr. Sarah Combs. Good evening.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to stand before you again. It's an honor to stand before you. My name is Kim Howlett. I live in Hillsborough County. I'm buying a house next year. I'm so excited. We do need affordable housing. I'm here to ask you to please, please vote no on granting Hope this $10 million. We don't need affordable housing through taxpayer funding. Property taxes will go up. Hope can get what they need from the donors. Please don't allow the Hope Fund to profit off the backs of taxpayers. You represent us. Vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Antoinette Johnson. Antoinette here, followed by Dr. Sarah Combs, and then Liz Gutierrez. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Antoinette Johnson, and I have a question. When taxpayers can no longer pay corporate bills, what will you do to get the funding? Corporations need to do their job and run their business. Nonprofits need to raise funds through donors. Due to these overwhelming taxes, due to these type of subsidies, homeowners can no longer afford to pay their mortgages. I can't even purchase a home with a $100,000 income. When will you stop funding corporations? Thank you. Vote no on the subsidy.
Thank you. Dr. Sarah Combs. No. Liz
Good
Gutierrez?
evening, County Commissioners and staff.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, please continue.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Dr. Sarah Combs. I'm the CEO of the University Area CDC, and I'm calling to stress the critical importance of preserving the $10 million Hope Affordable Housing Fund. Tampa Bay is facing unprecedented housing prices, with rent prices escalating faster than incomes can keep pace. This has left thousands of families, seniors, and young professionals struggling to find attainable housing. Affordable housing isn't just a necessary necessity for those in need. It's the foundation of a healthy and vibrant community. At the University Area CDC, we witness daily the strain on families who work hard yet still can't afford a place to call home. The preservation of this fund is not just about housing, it's about stability, opportunity, and dignity for our residents. It's about ensuring that our teachers, our first responders, our essential workers, the backbone of our community and our businesses have the ability to live near their jobs, reducing commutes, and fostering stronger, more connected communities. Because of this funding, University Area CDC, in partnership with Blue Sky Community, was able to develop Uptown Sky, 61 units to the very low in income. Without this gap funding, Uptown Sky would not have been possible. Investing in affordable housing is an investment in Tampa Bay's future. It ensures that we remain a region where people can work, live, and thrive, no matter their income level. I urge you to preserve this fund for the benefit of our current and future generations who call Tampa Bay home. Please vote to keep this fund alive. Thank you.
Thank you. Liz Gutierrez, followed by Bud Smith, and then a Betty Smith. Good evening.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Liz Gutierrez. I happen to be the founder and CEO of Enterprising Latinas, an organization that supports women's economic prosperity. But I'm here today to speak as a human being. I'm here today to speak as a woman, as a mother, as a voter, and as a taxpayer. I'm not going to repeat the data that has already been shared with you. I think it's been abundantly stated. I understand that some members of this body believe that there are better ways that we can use our taxpayer dollars. I'm a taxpayer. I'm asking you to please vote in support of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that we call HOPE. As someone else said, it's a fund that took years to establish. So many people worked so hard so that we could have a fund that could support this type of activity so that more people in our community could be protected. I think as individuals, as members of the board, you have every right to believe whatever it is that you believe, but I think that you represent us all. And you have a big job to do here. So I'm gonna respectfully ask that you really reconsider the value that it means to protect all people in our community. We all deserve to live in a healthy place, to live in a safe home that we can all be proud of. It's good for the economy, it's good for those people that are housed, and it's good for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Bud Smith. Bud Smith. Good evening.
Hello, thank you again. I was here last week, so I appreciate your time. I appreciate it. So my wife and I
Can you
are
state
resident.
your name, please?
Yes,
For the
sorry.
record.
Bud
Thank you.
Smith, also known as Bernard Smith, so they had me at Bud. My wife and I are Hillsborough County homeowners, taxpayers, and we vote. So that's very important to you. And we're asking you to vote no in regards to HOPE subsidies for builders. We're not against affordable housing at all. We're against using our taxpayer dollars to fund affordable housing. Whether it's nonprofit builders or corporate builders, let them get their funds from another source. And I said this last week, and I'll say it again. We pay property taxes for the county services that you provide. That's why we pay taxes. We don't pay property taxes to build affordable housing. And you all know, as you look, everything has increased. Housing prices have gone up, taxes have gone up, property especially in Florida, property insurance is some people can't even get property insurance. That has gone up. And so we're asking you to be very prudent in the management of our tax dollars and vote no. I know you've listened to a lot of the public opinion last week, and I heard it and I made a note of it, and made a note of it last week, that the majority was saying vote no. So I want you to take account of that, and we ask you to vote no. Thank you very much for your time and for what you do.
Thank you. Betty Smith.
Hi, I'm Betty Smith. That was my husband. I am a taxpayer. I am a resident and a homeowner here in Hillsborough County. We love living here, and we thank you for, I know that, you know, these are heavy decisions, and we do, you know, consider, you know, what you do for us. But I'm asking that you vote no on granting HOPE subsidies for developers. We need taxpayer affordable. We need taxpayer, we don't need taxpayer, excuse me, affordable housing. We do need affordable housing. And again, I'll reiterate, we do pay taxes for the services that we receive in Hillsborough County. And we'd like to see those continue at the level that they are. We do enjoy living here, and we like to see that. And as you know, again, everything has increased, house prices, property taxes, everything has increased. So we ask that you be prudent in the management of our tax dollars, and please vote no on HOPE subsidies for developers.
Thank you. Justin LaRosa, followed by Matthews Levine. Justin. Me followed by Matthew Levine. Good evening.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to me tonight on this very, very long night. I'm really grateful for all the work that the county has done, all of you. And I also want to congratulate some of the misinformation that's gone out pretty organized-wise. That's been actually a very good job that has been going on. You know the numbers. You know the need. You know the call. You may disagree about some things around implementation of taxes. But the reality is, people of very low income have nowhere to live. And a great city, a great county, does things to help its citizens. And we worked bipartisan for years on this thing, and suddenly we're not. What's that about? Got pressure from the party? Pressure from your constituency? I don't know. But it seems wild to me that we can't work together, that we can't find a way forward to help the least of these with housing. It's a call. It's an opportunity. We can put partisan politics aside and act like there's subsidies from this $10 million drop in the bucket. There's probably I support roads. I want roads everywhere. I want sidewalks. Totally agree with that. It's not an either or. It's a both and. Let's find solutions together. Let's stop this partisan bickering and get forward to help make Hillsborough County all it can be. Thanks.
Thank you. Matthew Levine. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Matthew Levine. I am 45 years old. I've basically lived in Hillsborough County my whole life. I'm from Carrollwood. I also need to say that I'm Jewish on this occasion because there is $100,000 allocated to the Florida Israel Business Accelerator, and it's pretty abhorrent that we're sending money to a genocidal foreign entity when it's needed so badly here. I am in favor of the funding for HOPE. Money is needed for all kinds of things here, so we don't need to be propping up businesses that are owned in another country you could be supporting business owners that live right here in Tampa. The International Court of Justice has ruled that Israel is plausibly committing a genocide as we speak. They're committing terrorist acts in Lebanon. They're a rogue state. It's insane that we would be supporting them. Everyone here should be opposed to fascism and white supremacy, which is what Israel represents. So please take that $100,000 and put it into something useful like housing. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the Storm, followed by Judy Richmond. Elizabeth? She's on the line?
Not checking.
Okay.
No.
Judy Richmond? Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having a public meeting where we can come together and speak our minds. I would like to say that I am in favor of the $10 million to be spent for Hope Affordable Housing. I want to speak about hope, the word hope, and about affordable. I have lived in Hillsborough County for 40 years, in the same house for 40 years. And I know that's very unusual, but I've seen my taxes go up and up, and my insurance go up, and everything go up and up. But I'm still here, and I intend to stay here. I volunteer at an organization, a nonprofit, whose offices are downtown. And every day we speak to people on the telephone who are searching for hope. They live here also. They want to be able to stay here. They want to be able to pay taxes and put their children in school and do everything that most people do. But they are being edged out of where they live and how they live by upward mobility, I guess. But we encourage them to have hope. And one of those things that we hope that is going to come out of this meeting is that you will approve the $10 million, which seems like a drop in the bucket when we're talking about so many other millions and even billions of dollars. But the other thing is that the people that we're talking about are working people, most of them. Or they're like me, they're retired. I was a high school teacher, and now I'm working for other people voluntarily. But I hope that you will take the time to vote.
Thank you so much.
For this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ernest Coney Jr., followed by Scott Elder. Ernest Coney Jr. Okay, Scott Elder. Then after Scott will be Thomas Spaulding. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Scott Eller. I'm the founder and CEO of Community Assisted and Supported Living and a proud partner with Blue Sky Communities. We've heard a lot tonight, and I'm hoping to set the record straight on some things. They first said this is a subsidy for developers. Well, to go back in history, in 1988, Ronald Reagan, who in my opinion was one of the greatest presidents, one of his legacies that meant a lot to me is he created the tax credits as a pilot. George Herbert Walker Bush in 1992 for the 93 fiscal year made it a permanent fixture in the federal budget. But tax credits is a very complicated business, and it's very competitive. Without local match from different groups, you're just not going to get it. As a matter of fact, right now I'm doing an application in Pinellas County, and I have to find private local match. Otherwise, we won't be competitive for the credits. If you remove the $10 million from the budget, what's going to happen is the tax credit and that federal money is going to be going to other counties. This is not a subsidy. It is to get the deals done. To date, over the last 6 years, Blue Sky Community Castle have raised roughly $400 million to do developments around the state in 11 counties, of which $20 million has been by local groups. So it's a 20-to-1 match, which I think is a really good investment. And that has taken people off the streets. To give an example of what we did in Sarasota, Florida in a development, one of the gentlemen we brought in that's homeless and disabled, mentally ill, He, the previous year, had 32 arrests and 15 Baker and Marchman acts. He's been with me since March of 2020 at Harbor Village. He has not been back in a jail or hospital once. There was a huge net savings to the taxpayers. So this is not socialism. It's not stealing money from the taxpayers. It is investing taxpayer monies wisely in the community so people can live, work, and play in the community that they live in versus having to transit in every day. The money is not better spent elsewhere. We are saving lives. We are keeping people off the streets. We're reducing ER admissions, jails, and also other costs. Thank you very much.
So much. Thank you. Thomas Spalding, followed by Chloe Coney and Gabriel Morgan. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Thomas Spalding. My family and I, we live, we work, we play, we worship here in Hillsborough County. I'm a member of HOPE. Our family's a member of HOPE. We want Hillsborough County to be a better place for everyone, no matter whether you're rich or poor, whether you're black, you're brown, you're white. This is our community together. My mother just passed at 94. She grew up in the Depression, and I'm going to bring her spirit in the room. Her name is Nancy. Our crisis today in this country in some ways echoes the stories my mother told me about the Great Depression. The number of people living on the street, the number of people unemployed, the number of people looking for work, a way out of the misery. Suncoast, the United Way just came out with their report on ALICE, asset limited, income constrained, employed people in Florida. That just means working poor are 46.5% of Florida. That's almost the majority of the state. It is appalling, the levels of poverty. In the Depression, the people went to their government and their government said the market will solve it. It did not. It got worse. They threw the politicians out who said that and brought in someone who gave the population a New Deal. And you know what that was? That was 44% of GDP in state money invested in public-private partnerships that turned this country around and led to a middle class that we're still benefiting from today. I wouldn't be here as a middle-class person if it wasn't for that public-private partnership. 1%, I mean, the amount of money we're putting in, this should not be 10 million, this should be 100 million, this should be $1 billion investment. We are so far behind what needs to be done. I petition to you as commissioners to step forward and get it done for the people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Chloe Coney. Ms. Coney here. Followed by Gabriel Morgan and then Humir Afzal. Good evening, Ms. Coney.
Good evening, County Commissioners. I'm so glad to be here today. First of all, I'm a seasoned practitioner with economic development. 32 years. I was the founder of CDC of Tampa. And I'd like to start out by saying the first apartments that we built with Bank of America, Oswald Landing, 43 apartments. And today, Tampa Housing Authority is doing a great job providing those apartments. One of the ladies that bought our first home that we did, single family, was a grandmother. And her daughter had died, and she had 3 grandchildren. And she was able to afford that house because we had Ward Dunn, a Buccaneer. They gave her a down payment and as well as furnished her house. There was not a dry eye at her ribbon cutting. So why am I saying all of this? Because today I want to say thank you to county commissioners. Let me wake up. You were able to fund Amateur Place, 92 apartments that was remodeled, gutted out. You had one of the tenants that was there, a disabled veteran. He started out by saying, thank you, CDC of Tampa. Thank you, Hillsborough County Commissioners, for funding this project. I lived here previously. It was deplorable, and I needed somewhere that would take care of my needs. I am so happy to be here. So today I want to say thank you. He's not here, so I'm going to say thank you for him. Thank you, County Commissioner. Gwen Myers, you were there. Cheryl Howard and Ms. Bonnie Wise, all of your housing staff was there. Everybody there gave them a round of applause. We were so proud of Hillsborough County government. I also want to thank you for Diana Gardens. You were able to fund 24 rental homes, and now CDC is building 24
Thank you, Ms. Cooney.
rental. So I want to say thank you for
Appreciate
all
your
the things
comments.
you've done. But please fund.
Thank you, ma'am.
Please fund.
Gabriel
Tiffany.
Morgan, followed by Humira Abzal, and then Dustra Haynes. Good evening.
Good evening. Gabriel Morgan, pastor of St. Paul Lutheran in Tampa. I'm going to start with some math tonight. At an average of 65 units per project and $2 million median investment, and approximately 54,000 in our county who are at or below 80% AMI, spending more than half of their income on housing, this brings us to a total of $1.6 billion in total needed investments, okay? Just since we're throwing numbers around. Now, since we also save about $20,000 in taxpayer funds per unit per person because we get them into housing and off the streets, that means this largely pays for itself, because that's approximately $30,000 per unit. That is a great deal. That is a killer price. Moreover, government also has to do this, not just the churches. We give away thousands of dollars every year in direct aid to the poor, not $1.6 billion. Hello. That's why Joseph stored up grain in order to prepare for a famine in Genesis. It says in Proverbs 19:17, whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord and will be repaid in full. That's also for all of you. Now, to the idea that the $10 million for housing is a tax burden driving people out of their homes, that is a lie, pure and simple. If 0.1 mils is 16 million, then 10 million is 0.0625 mils. That's 30 or less per year on an average property, as you've already heard. It is written in Leviticus 23, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap to the very edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and for the foreigner. I am the Lord your God. In other words, to keep your pennies on the millage is to glean the edges of your field. That is theft from the poor. Lay aside partisan politics and do what is right. To reduce the reserve contribution by 10 million is a far, far smaller proposal than dropping it all the way to 21%. Then you can put an equal amount, 10 million to roads, 10 million to housing. We're all good. If we can't come to a simple and reasonable agreement like that, then I can think there's only one of two things driving this, either partisanism or cruelty. Put partisan politics aside and listen to the facts. Approve the $10 million for the county's Affordable Housing Fund. That is an investment not just in our local community, but the people of this county. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Humira Abzal, followed by Dustra Haynes and Megan Emmer.
Hi, Humira Abzal. In case you didn't read my T-shirt as I walked up here, it says, fight poverty, not the poor. Some commissioners seem more interested in fighting poor people than in fighting poverty. Poverty pulls our entire society down. Addressing poverty is difficult. Neglecting poor people is just way too easy. I'm here to ask again that you change course and keep at least $10 million in the 25 budget for HOPE. Investing in affordable housing benefits everyone, not just the people who live in the HOPE housing units. It creates jobs, attracts businesses, leads to better outcomes for children, saves on taxpayer dollars spent on incarceration, because being unhoused is increasingly criminalized. Emergency room visits, saves on emergency short-term housing, et cetera. When looking at new locations for business expansion, CEOs also look at things like the cost of housing. They know how it affects their employees. They also know that in areas where everyone is cost burdened, people don't have money to buy their goods and services. Florida has the second highest poverty rate in the United States. You are right above Mississippi. You've already heard plenty of statistics, so I'll skip them. But on my bike ride home from the public hearing last week, I counted 8 people sleeping on the concrete by the Tampa Museum of Art. While cutting funding for affordable housing for Hillsborough County residents, you don't seem to have an issue with again giving $100,000 to a program that promotes Israeli-owned startups over locally owned businesses. Israel has already received way too many of our taxpayer dollars. Since the end of World War II, the U.S. has provided Israel with around $325 billion. You should not be giving preferential treatment to foreign-owned startups instead of using that money and special help to help locally owned businesses. Even worse, this money is supporting the economy of a country that is committing genocide.
Thank you, ma'am. Dustra Haynes, followed by Megan Emmer and Benjamin Jones. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Dustra Haynes. I own a home and work in Hillsborough County and have done so for several years. I would like to urge you to commit the $10 million in this year's county budget for affordable housing, specifically aimed at low and very low income residents who do not get adequate services through other available funding. This fund has been hugely successful in the years it has been in place, creating 112 units in Seffner, 61 units in the university area, and 20 units in New Tampa. There are several hundred additional units committed to in past years as well. And as amazing as that is, it's an incredibly small portion of units that our county desperately needs to ensure all of our residents have stable, safe housing. This is an ethical issue for all of us. If we want to make our county great, we need to ensure there is adequate basic necessities for our children, seniors, veterans, people with disabilities, and others who are working hard and not able to make it in the current economy, many times through no fault of their own. And this is a financial issue. As you've heard, many other sources of funding require county funds to be leveraged. Without local funds, we cannot get the state and federal funds available, all the funding that's been talked about. A lot of it is leveraged through these local funds that we commit to. Furthermore, stable housing reduces the need and use of publicly funded hospitalizations, mental health facility use, police and emergency service costs, and jail costs, as you've heard. This is a classic case of an ounce of prevention produces a pound of cure. We will be paying higher costs for police and emergency services, jail and hospitalization services, no matter what, if we do not properly fund and provide stable housing for those in need. As a taxpayer, I want my hard-earned money to go towards supporting our vulnerable neighbors in building a life of dignity and self-reliance, rather than paying the costs for public safety and human services that are incurred when people are on the street facing higher rates of disease, mental illness, abuse, accident, and arrest. When our neighbors are doing the best they can, this economy makes it impossible to make it. A modern society needs to have decent safety nets. Thank you for your time.
Megan Ammer, followed by Benjamin Jones, and then a Brianna Hain, which is virtual. Good evening.
Good evening, commissioners. It definitely looks like we're on a witch hunt to find some money. So Commissioner Wostel, I have a great idea for you. It's a small amount, but the $100,000 for the Florida Israeli Business Accelerator, I definitely think we should move that to the roads program as well. Or Commissioner Myers, I have another idea as well. We can move the $100,000 to the Boys and Girls Fund and ask them to start up coding for youth in underserved communities. As we heard from Sally Osman last week, I don't think anybody really knew who she was, but here in Tampa, you actually have some pretty impressive people. So Sally Osman, who spoke out against the Florida Israeli Business Accelerator last week, is the former chief security officer of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Yes, they manage $100 billion a year to give out in loans. She's also the principal security executive officer for Amazon. And she spoke last week how she can't even find people with talent. She said giving coding in high school classes was too late, that she couldn't actually hire people. So all commissioners, I ask you, if you asked any business here in the Tampa Bay area, would you rather funding for a foreign business, or would you rather funding going to promote businesses in Tampa to get contracts? That business owner is going to tell you, I want the businesses here in Tampa to be supported by my county and by my county tax dollars. They would never say, yes, go ahead, spend $100,000 to try to support a foreign government to get a contract here that I could have gotten. Do the Washington Post test. The Washington Post test is there going to be a headline that could get you in trouble? I think in this case, yes. Woo, Israeli company beats out local minority-owned business here in Tampa to win a contract with the local hospitals. And who supported that Israeli company to get that contractor? Hillsborough County commissioners. So please, move this $100,000. It shouldn't support foreign companies. Support here. Thank you.
Ma'am. Benjamin Jones, followed by Brianna Hine, and then Tyler Roberts. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Benjamin Jones, and I am a resident and college student here at Hillsborough County. I have examined the facts on this case, and we've heard from Dr. Hall, who has spoken on the various disadvantages to this HOPE subsidy. And I can guarantee you that subsidizing these corporations will cause housing costs to rise even further. And to make up for this, property taxes will have to increase, making it harder for young people like me to own a home. So I urge you not to risk our financial future, the financial future of millions of Hillsborough County residents on short-term solutions. I just turned 21, and I will not allow my generation to be hindered by excessive taxes. Please vote no on HOPE subsidies. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is Brianna Hine on the line?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. My name is Brianna Hine, and I'm speaking today to make sure that my constituents' displeasure in regard to the allocation of our budget into the Florida Israel Business Acceleration Program is duly noted. I was there in person last week and heard many concerned citizens comment on their disapproval of the Florida Israeli Business Acceleration Program and investment. And not a single council member remarked on FIBA or the comments that were made by many individuals at the end of the public comments at that meeting last week. Conversation was had about the allocations of funds for HOPE, and members of the council commended the dedication that HOPE members have in showing up for equitable housing, which, to be clear, is commendable. And I do not believe that the funds should be taken away from the HOPE program as well. But where was the acknowledgement of the other individuals who took time out of their day to make sure their voices were heard about FIBA? Even some members of HOPE last week mentioned their disapproval for FIBA and how the funds being invested into a foreign entity could be reallocated to local housing and local issues. I want to be very clear here. You represent all of the people of Hillsborough County, even the individuals you do not agree with. If you have a large group of people rallying together to call out what we see as a misallocation of our tax dollars, it is your responsibility to address those concerns. If you truly believe that we should invest in a foreign government's economy and their small businesses, a government that is currently committing a genocide in real time, at least support it with all of your conviction and help us to understand your point of view on the matter. We deserve at least that much. Thank you.
Tyler Roberts, followed by Deborah Owens, who's virtual, and then Kimberly Overman. Good evening.
How you guys doing? My name is Tyler Roberts. I'm a resident of Hillsborough County, and once I heard about this budget hearing, I knew I had to come here and speak. I have a background in construction. I've done it for about 8 years, and I've seen and worked closely with the housing market in quite some time. This hearing is giving about 10 million subsidies so that affordable housing can be built in the county. And I live in Brandon, Florida, in an apartment community and have seeking housing to buy that my family could enjoy. The housing prices are off the charts. The rent is higher than it's ever been, and housing has been less affordable. The issue is not lacking housing to where we can build more housing developments, but the issue is the local government. You fine women and gentlemen of this county commission need to do something to combat the rising prices. I personally support you folks, and you have my vote, but I beg you, please, do not give 10 million to the corporations so that they can build housing developments. If you do that, our taxes will go up to compensate the cost of living and is already at the place where some people can't even afford it right now. I ask that you take care of your people and the residents of this county who voted for you and not to take care of some corporations. Please vote no on passing these subsidies. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Deborah Owens, which is virtual, followed by Kimberly Oberman and a Robert Emerson. Is Ms. Owens on the line?
Yes, Deborah Owens.
Good evening.
Good evening. The Board of County Commissioners has before it a proposed tax millage increase of 3.02% that should not be approved. It is too great an increase on top of last year's 7.59% increase. One of my major complaints with the BOCC tax money use deals with nonprofit funding that you dole out to organizations that should be doing their own fundraising and other nonprofit organizations that should not get 1 red cent of taxpayer dollars. I call your attention to various fraternities, sororities, chambers of commerce, etc. I spent some time looking up some of the recipients of your largesse and found them, in my opinion, to be questionable. $100,000 for a, quote, private nonprofit that has Tai Chi and meditative doodling sessions. I could go on. My other major complaint is the public library system, which maintains an inventory of children's books that qualify as banned under Florida statute. And if you are concerned about school terror threats, then why does our library have 21 volumes of a series called Assassination Classroom on its shelves? My tax money is being used to promote violence and immorality. Free speech, you say? I say public violence and civilizational collapse. You say prices have gone up, so you need more money? Oh yes, prices have gone up. Let nonprofits raise their own funds. No more dangerous and immoral books should be purchased. No property tax millage increase this year, please. Rather, you should
Thank you,
cut
ma'am.
spending.
Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
We have Kimberly Overman, followed by Robert Emerson, and then Natalie Irizani. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Kimberly Overman, a resident of Hillsborough County. I have provided to you prior to this meeting the Florida 2024 Florida rental market study that actually talks about the affordable housing burden and crisis that we're experiencing, as well as information regarding Hillsborough County's housing trends. That was passed out to you this evening. We have lost nearly 292,000 affordable housing rental units over the last years, while adding 700 higher rent units. So the market is not going to fix this problem by asking market rate developers to build the housing that we need. Hillsborough County has added 29,000 rental units, but lost units renting for $1,200 or less. That shift leaves many low-income families struggling to find affordable housing, exacerbating homelessness and creating insecurity in our families as well as our communities. The median wage for Hillsborough County is $22 an hour. Insufficient to afford a typical two-bedroom apartment that now rents in Hillsborough County at $1,659. Many of our essential workers in our county can only afford $600 to $800 roughly in rent per month. If we don't look at this disparity, 27% of the population of Hillsborough County pays more than 40% of their income towards housing costs right now. Free market developers are not going to develop and solve this affordable housing problem. The Housing Trust is gap funding when there's not enough in private finance dollars and Florida housing money.
Thank you, Ms. Overman. Appreciate
I will
your
speak
comments.
again at CPI since this time was shortened. Thank you.
Robert Emerson, followed by Narrowly Irizami, which is virtual, and then Tina Forcier. Is Mr. Emerson here? If not, is there a Narrowly who's virtual?
Mr. Chair, Narrowly did not sign it.
Okay, thank you. Tina Forcier, Richard Rogers, and then a Nabil. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Tina Forcier, the CEO for Habitat for Humanity of Hillsborough County. So I had a whole bunch of other things, but it's been covered, so I won't kill you with it. But since 2019, Habitat Hillsborough has been awarded $7 million through Hillsborough County, different pots of funds, but overall it was $7 million. It assisted us in building 109 homes. These 109 homes provide approximately $327,000 in property taxes each year. Most Habitat homeowners stay in their home for life. But if we just considered the 30-year mortgage that they get into, they will have paid nearly $10 million in property taxes. The founder of Habitat for Humanity once said, "What the poor need is capital, not charity." There could be no better example of what he was telling us so many years ago. These 109 homes appraise around $300,000 each, providing over $30 million of value to our community. That's nearly 5 times what the county had to put in to make this happen. So they're right when they're talking about leverage, and these are statistics right from the nonprofit that I serve in every day. In the past, I've heard comments at these meetings about how affordable housing development should get their funding from the Live Local Act. The Live Local Act funding does not assist in the development of affordable homeownership opportunities. It's primarily geared for rental housing. It also does provide some property tax relief for specific groups, but it's not specifically aimed at low-income homeowners who are the ones that really need that help. In addition, if subsidy is provided on the front end for low-income households to gain access to homeownership, they pay back the subsidy. Granted, it's over time, but they do so in the form of property taxes. They are also less likely to need additional forms of assistance from tax dollars because they have an affordable and safe place to call home. Thank you.
Richard Rogers, followed by a Nabil, that's virtual, and then a Daima. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Richard Rogers. I'm with Habitat for Humanity, and I serve on the county's Affordable Housing Advisory Board. I strongly urge the board to maintain the Hope Fund for affordable housing. As we all know, Hillsborough County is amid affordable housing crisis, and community surveys state affordable housing is a top priority. Hope funds help nonprofit organizations like Habitat for Humanity build homes for low-income families in need. Eliminating the Hope Fund would not save taxpayer dollars, as it has been described. The amount of revenue that Habitat homeowners pay in property taxes each year is much more than the amount we receive from the county each year to build the homes. Not less, more. Thus, every taxpayer dollar invested into Habitat for Humanity is returned back to the county through property taxes. And this doesn't include all the subsidies that we would save as well from them getting a home and not having to get subsidized rent, food stamps, or funding for homelessness. Instead, they pay back the investment that went into their home and then some. The money that Habitat receives through the Hope Fund should not be looked at as a burden to taxpayers, but rather an investment that generates revenue to reduce the burden on taxpayers. And this positive investment helps families like the Giselli family. Frank Giselli works in construction and is also an occupational therapist. At age 13, his daughter Angelina developed an autoimmune spinal disease that disabled her, and she cannot walk anymore. They barely could afford the rent of their studio apartment on the 3rd floor with no elevator. So every day for 3 years, Frank had to carry his 13-year-old daughter over his shoulders up 3 flights of stairs. This year, we were able to build the Giselli family an ADA-compliant home with lowered countertops, widened doorways, added grab bars, and lift structures in the ceiling to help with Angelina's needs. Frank said he couldn't be more grateful for Habitat for Humanity and the volunteers who made it possible for him and his daughter to live with dignity and have a safe, stable place to raise his daughter that meets her needs. This is the type of family you're helping.
Thank you, sir.
Please keep the funds.
Appreciate it. Is there a Nabil that's virtual?
Nabil did not sign it.
Okay, how about Daima?
Can you hear it?
Yes, I can hear it.
Good evening.
I previously came to speak on behalf of Hope by sharing moral points, and I'm back to clarify misconceptions on the Hope Affordable Housing Funds by sharing some facts. Commissioner Wachtel, I truly and genuinely appreciate you making sure that our county's money is managed properly. But if you had taken the time to meet with us at the Hope organization when they reach out to you and your staff multiple times, we could have come up with a common ground that both you and the thousands of people in this community would be happy with. So here's some facts that we need to clarify on the Hope Funds. The Hope Funds leverage other funds. It's a critical local investment that can leverage 5 to 6 times the funds from the state, federal, and private sources to make a project work. This brings more funds into our county. It also improves the feasibility of more bond deals through the Housing Finance Authority bond program. It's estimating that $10 million, if leveraged wisely, can result in 2 to 3 more bond deals annually. I also know that you want to find additional funds, so I'd surely hope that you can cut the Florida Israeli Business Accelerator by investing in our community, not an Israeli foreign government, because they don't need our funds. They actually have free housing. They have free healthcare. They have free higher education for their citizens. And if you want to truly improve our community, then keep our dollars here at home, because FIBA technology investment should be in the U.S. Otherwise, it falls into the wrong hands. And what's recently, just about a week ago, the Times of Israel reported, and you can read the article, that an Israeli pled guilty to shipping U.S.-made avionics to Russia, violating sanctions. And the U.S. Justice Department says that Gal Hamovich sent aircraft technology, some of it with missile applications, worth $2 million to Russian customers, violating export controls amid a Ukraine war. So the commissioners may be found personally liable for circumventing such export controls, since we, right now, the public, are educating them against this idea. So I do recommend that you undo the policy change that you guys did in May 15, 2024 to avoid anything coming back to haunt the commission. Thank you for keeping our tax dollars here at home.
Next three speakers are Stacy Ransom, followed by Harrison Lundy, and then Robin Lockett. Good evening.
Greetings. My name is Stacy Ransom, and I have been a homeowner in Hillsborough County since 2004. I want to use my time here to speak facts, not fiction. Many of the people that came speaking against affordable housing mentioned being renters, not homeowners, so they are weighing in on a conversation that's not even really relevant to them. They also mentioned being new to the area and state, so they have no idea the history of this fund and what it has accomplished. Let's be clear, there is money to do both. It was stated in the beginning when we created this budget for this year, the proposed budget. It is not an either-or situation, and I don't believe the people that elected the people voting against it want you to put people out on the streets so that they can have a sidewalk that they can't even sleep on for fear of being arrested. People having adequate housing is a matter of public safety. Why would we choose to sit on funds that could help a person keep a roof over their heads, the most basic of needs? Let's be clear, without these funds, there are no additional funds. These funds are what leverages the additional funds that everyone keeps speaking of. If we won't invest in our own community, why would anybody else? House prices and taxes are not driven up by this minuscule piece of the budget. They are driven up by people moving here, overpaying for homes, and thus inflating our property values. This is not, I repeat, not a new tax. This is a part of the budget that has been funded for the last 5 years and represents $30 per household only in the cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, and Plant City. For all these unincorporated areas that most of us live in, such as Waimama, this does not even affect you, and you will not get your $30 back. This fund creates jobs. Do you not really want to make this community great again? I find it very hypocritical that there's a commissioner sitting here that not too long ago was a benefactor from this very program. What if this had not been in place when you needed it?
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Harrison Lundy, followed by Robin Lockett, and then a Reverend Tina Knott. Good evening.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Harrison Lundy. I live in 33579, in District 4 of Hillsborough County. Earlier tonight, we heard from a few speakers who said they were Gen Z. So, as a fellow Gen Z, I do want to dispel some, really quickly, I just want to dispel some blatant misinformation and say that hope does save lives. Hope does step up for the most marginalized when others don't and can't. And Hope is doing everything that they can, working within the framework of a frankly already depressing budget for affordable housing. For the majority of voters and workers in my generation, we look to organizations like Hope. The diversity and grassroots focus that we see in Hope is something that we don't see a lot of in this commission's voting record. So I worry and I fear for the direction that this county's leadership is taking us. It is shameful to think that this commission would throw working people, working Gen Z constituents, I literally just came straight from work to be here actually, throw us under the bus as you funnel money to be into foreign businesses that are complicit in the genocide in Palestine with no issue. This commission will vote to invest millions in bonds to a genocidal overseas government and inflate the sheriff's office budget further to go after houseless folks, but it has to be a whole debate on whether a life-saving organization like Hope receives $10 million to function here in our county, in this country. There's a very clear choice to make with this budget. Either let your vote be controlled by those who spit out misinformation and conspiracy but can't produce any numbers, or stand with Hope as they continue to fight for working people in this county. My generation depends on it. so I can actually live here. Too often for me, it feels like my family and I don't even get to live here anymore. We just have to survive. So I'm asking that you end this suffering, reject another investment in FIBA, and invest this critical $10 million into hope. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Robin Lockett, followed by Reverend Tina Knott and Coretta Timms. Is Robin Lockett present? If not, Reverend Tina Knock. Then Coretta Timms and Don Sherman. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. I am Reverend Tina Knock. I am one of the associate pastors for First United Church of Tampa, UCC. I am also a member of Hillsborough County as well as a taxpayer. And I want my county to be a great place to live, not better, but great place to live, work, and do business. And I want this county to not only be a good steward, but be a county that does that which is just and right. What is just and right is for families to have stability and for children to grow up in a safe and a productive environment. I believe that what we are asking for as Hope, you know, that money in the budget can help do that. I also believe to have the ability to do that which is right, good, and just, and to refuse to do it could be classified as evil. And in that vein, I want you to consider this quote by Bob Riley: "Tolerating evil leads only to more evil. And when good people stand by and do nothing while wickedness reigns, their communities will be consumed." I'm not going to ask you or tell you which way to vote, but I will ask you to interrogate your motivations and find out, why are you doing what you're doing? I hope that you will do the right thing, and I hope that we can find a way to ensure our community is not consumed. Thank you.
Thank you. Coretta Timms. Is Coretta here? If not, Don Sherman. Don here? Followed by Chris Borzel. And then the last speaker is a Bashar, who's virtual. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Don Sherman. I'm a resident of District 4. Okay. And I am a registered independent voter. I thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of allocating the $10 million to the County Affordable Housing Fund, also known as the HOPE Fund. I'm not going to go through all the numbers. You've heard them tonight. You've heard them many times. But I want to share what I'm concerned about is how the problem has long tentacles that reach across our county, causing problems that continue to demand county resources. Inadequate housing causes obstacles to education for students from low and very low income families. It causes unstable family environments, which potentially leads to other problems which the county has to devote resources, such as law enforcement and mental health. It also affects students for the rest of their lives, as these children are more likely to have lower academic performance, more learning disabilities, behavioral problems, and are less likely to graduate from high school. As adults, they are less likely to find sufficient paying jobs. In the meantime, we point and blame the teachers, the schools, law enforcement, when the nexus of the problem is instead the ability to afford adequate housing. And so this cycle continues to repeat itself generation after generation. I've listened today to many that have come forward and said they recommend you vote no. What I've not heard is a solution. All the people that are asking you to vote no have not offered a solution. Maybe you have a solution that you haven't told us about. But I'm afraid that if we do not have this solution, that we're going to be here again next year with the same issue.
Appreciate your comments. Chris Borzel. And then Bashar will be our last speaker.
Thank you. My name is Chris Borzel. I have lived in the Tampa Bay area since 1981, almost exclusively, here in Hillsborough County since the mid-90s. I am here to address all the concerns. I echo what my fellow constituents have said. I praise the marketing campaign against the poor, as it's clearly been quite successful. We are pitting, I think at the beginning of this meeting, I heard some congratulations about the job done on the budget, but if we are sitting here today and talking about the difference between affordable housing and sidewalks, we're not doing a very good job. We need to do better. This is not the decisions that we should be making, sidewalks versus affordable housing. I'm here to speak specifically to the efforts that Habitat for Humanity has been able to contribute to our community, and I defy you to find a better return on investment than money going to an organization such as Habitat for Humanity, who squeezes way more out of $1 than can possibly be done by your private contractors elsewhere. And again, we're talking about infrastructure here. We're talking about human infrastructure. We are talking about improving the backbone of this community. This is a pivotal time in Hillsborough County. We are growing at an unprecedented rate, and if we're not able to support everybody in this community, we are absolutely going to fall by the wayside. Some of us are going to fall by the wayside and not be able to grow together. And so I would ask that you revisit this drastic decision to completely do away with the funding for HOPE, and I hope that you all see reason. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there a basher who's on the line virtually?
Mr. Chair, Bashar did not sign it.
Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes the public comment portion of the agenda. Prior to adopting the millage and budget resolutions, we have several items to address. Procedurally, I'm going to suggest that we take up the 3 requests from our first public hearing, followed by the flag list, and then if there are any other items, and then the resolutions. So if everyone's okay with that. Commissioner Wilstel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you for the press corps in the back. I see you back there. Thanks for hanging in there with us tonight. Thank you for all of the youngest speakers in the audience that came tonight on a Thursday evening at 8 p.m. when you could have been doing something else. I really appreciate it. I appreciated the quotes from Ronald Reagan. I also agree that he is one of the best presidents in United States history. I mainly appreciate his quote that government's first duty is to protect the people, not run their lives. It does not solve problems, it subsidizes them. And that's really what we're here about tonight is not which problems we're going to fix, it's which problems we're going to subsidize. Administrator-wise, if I found you $10 billion, could you find a use for that?
10 billion? Sure.
Such is typical for government. How deep goes the hole? With any amount of money you find the government, you can rest assured that they are going to find a need and spend it maximally. I think that we've just reached a fundamental difference of economics. I am a Thomas Sowell economist, or at least I try to be. I believe his IQ might even rival that of Kevin Bricky's, and that's really saying something. I believe that reduction of property taxes makes every single home in Hillsborough County more affordable. What hasn't been said is that it also makes businesses more affordable in Hillsborough County. That gets left out of the conversation. In triple net leases that you negotiate, you're simply being passed through the amount of property taxes to your business as a business operator, and I'm charging that amount plus a percentage extra to every single consumer that comes to my counter. So not only does reducing property taxes improve home affordability in Hillsborough County, reducing property taxes maximally within reason, continuing to provide our core services, of course, also reduces the cost of living, the cost at your grocery stores. The grocery chains are not exempt from property taxes like nonprofits are. They pay property taxes and then they pass that through onto their thin 1% to 3% margin. That is why we're here. The main difference between the HOPE tax is that that's a property tax. the Hope tax was put through in a way that was extremely irregular. The previous board that put it in wanted to illegally bind future boards from having the discretion over all of the maximum funds that were offered to them. They were informed that that is illegal to do, and the workaround was for them to put in an ordinance that instead of them illegally binding the county commissioners, they legally binded the county budgets officer, which in this county is the county administrator. The county administrator does have the ability, though, to offer more than one recommended budget. I would encourage that as alternative, so we have more than one selection process. That is completely legal to do. So here we are stuck with this conundrum of should every single pass need continue on? And that answer is, of course, no, mainly because property taxes already have designated funds. The state will not pay for our local roads. They will not pay for our local stoplights. I would love for them to come in and offer me a fund for Lithia Pinecrest. That they won't. We're going to have to figure those things out ourselves. But the state and the federal government do provide subsidies for affordable housing, and this board has done an excellent job alongside County Administrator Wise of getting good grant writers and advocating for those funds. I do support them continuing to do that, but the notion of, well, it's not a tax, it's an investment. It is a tax, and not only is it a tax, it's being used to leverage 5 times, we heard, and sometimes 10 times more of your taxes from other entities, even more of an impact on the taxpayers of Hillsborough County. That's their taxes. Every project is a great project when it's with other people's money. In this situation, we have an item that is designated funder sources from other entities of federal government. Our property taxes have many restricted funds. I do want to clear up one misnomer, but it's only because the budgets are so confusing. We don't actually have $10 billion. We have intergovernment transfers. There's lots of double counting. Can I get a confirmation from the people in charge of the budget that we don't have $10 billion?
Commissioner, $2 billion of that 10 is transfers, which are an accounting mechanism that government standards require, government accounting standards.
I understand. I hate it, but I totally understand. I want to clear that up. We have restricted enterprise funds. We have old taxes that are for huge socialized medical care. We have one of the most socialized medical cares in the entire United States right here in Hillsborough County, specifically for the indigent community. We tax our citizens $200 million a year right now to socialize that medical care for them. That has a $400 million impact on this budget. The point is at the end of the day, we have $2.4 billion out of the $10 billion that's actually general funds. And even out of that $2.4 billion, the commissioners and the administrators, we have constitutional obligations to fund many of these constitutional officers out of that, the courthouses, et cetera, the tax collector, the clerk of the court. All of these things have to be funded. We have much, much less money than you would possibly realize to try and fund all of our exacerbated needs going back decades. I've gone through the road maintenance and repaving programs. It was really hard to find, and I'm happy to be corrected, but I can't find it being fully funded in 18 years at least. That's as far back as I could cleanly get through the record. And that's a problem, and that's why we're here today. So I will address the 3 items, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure I understand what you said by that.
Yeah, I would suggest that we vote on the Future Career Academy first, followed by the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and then lastly the reserves and millage, and which were kind of combined into one. But it didn't have to be in that order, but
okay,
all 3 of those.
I just want to, because I know that the future is in the flag, so does that have to wait for that? Does it need to wait for that?
It doesn't have, I don't think it has to. I just think it would be cleaner if that was a separate vote, because I think once we get to the flags, in all likelihood, someone's going to take it out, so I might as well address it but we don't have to.
Okay, that's fine. I will motion to reduce the countywide property tax by the equal amount of $500,000 defunding the Future Career Academy program.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Wostel. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Kemp, do you want to speak to the motion? No. Okay, we have a motion and a second. See no other comments, please record your vote. Yes.
Motion carried 4-3. Commissioners Cohen, Kemp, and Myers voted no.
Before the next one, administrator-wise, what is the overage of the accepted rolled back rate that we are budgeting right now?
I'm sorry. Can I go back to the last one to make sure that I understood something? Because I heard Commissioner Westel said to reduce property taxes by the 500,000.
The countywide.
And that's an ongoing issue, so we thought it was just the one-time flag, because flags are just one time. So,
Well, this is one of the ones that are permanent.
yeah, so you're saying to reduce property taxes by that?
To reduce the countywide millage equivalent to the amount that's funded for this annually.
Okay.
And what is that millage rollback rate?
The increase in the proposed aggregate millage over the aggregate rollback rate, 3.02%. I think that's what you're asking?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so we have the hope, and then what was the third one that you wanted to take care of before the final?
Discuss any millage reduction and potentially reserves.
In the reserves, administrator-wise, would it be easier if we kept these reserves how they are? Will it make it easier for us to do a millage rate swap next year if I leave those reserves where they are? Because by far the most needs are in the unincorporated District 4 and District 2.
I would say unequivocally yes.
Okay, then I will motion to maintain the countywide reserves as they currently are.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll second it.
we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Cohen, you want to comment?
Yeah, I do want to comment. I think that that's very prudent, and I think that that is really good because if we have some time, like last year you mentioned a millage swap and there was some time and they were able to incorporate that idea into this year's budget, and I supported it because I thought it was a worthy idea. I think that if we approach the issue of the reserves, perhaps by looking at reducing our contribution in future years, that might be a more palatable way to get to where you want to go. But the good thing is we'll have the time to discuss it, we'll have workshops, and I really feel like that's a very prudent way to travel down this road.
Commissioner Kemp, did you want to speak to this?
Yes. And I had just a point of clarification. Maybe I'm not the only one confused, as well as a point to make about it. But is the only thing we're going forward here right now, discussing and voting on, is
Reserves.
not to reduce the
Yes.
reserves?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. And secondly, and the only thing we voted on before was the $500,000 for the Future Career Academy, but was that involved also? I was confused in saying that we have a millage reduction by 500,000?
That's how I understood it.
Yes.
So that's what was clarified for me.
Okay. I think that wasn't clear at the discussion when we had it and should have been actually clarified. I would have asked for that to be clarified, at least so we knew what we were voting on. I voted no, but still, I think that that was not.
You may be correct, Commissioner Kemp, but it wouldn't have changed anyone's vote.
You what?
It would not have changed anyone's vote. So
Okay. Well, just to the reserves, I'll speak to that too. And I will totally be supporting not reducing the reserves at this time. And I noticed tonight on the chart that we had, and there's so much that we're absorbing tonight, but on the presentation by Kevin, that there were at least, I believe, 3 times, although the reserves are quite high now, even in recent past history, they have not been, and that they dipped below the 20%, I believe, in 2010. I think it was 2017, or it got right at the 20%. And 2020, was it?
Yes, it was still at 20% or above.
Right, but I just like to say, we're at a high rate now, we're at a high reserve now, but even in the recent past, even with the increased income we've had you know, we could see from this history tonight that that is not always true, and that's why I think it's prudent not to reduce it, because we do not know, and even in the next year, we could have something come up like whatever happened, whether it was reduced property tax income in those years, whether it was some type of emergency, urgent need, you know, that we had to deal with, that those reserves, you know, went right down to 20%, which is a big jump down. So I am supporting the motion. I think doing anything else at this time would be, you know, would not be prudent. So I'll support the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please record your vote.
If you could please re-record your vote. Motion carried 7-0.
Commissioner Wilstel, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so I will finally now take up the HOPE item. And I'm kind of, no, I think I will motion to proportionally decrease the countywide budget and defund the HOPE program for 2025.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Wilstel. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Cameron Cepeda. Commissioner Wilstel, can you clarify the motion for Commissioner Myers?
I motion to decrease the HOPE tax by $10 million, proportionally reduce the countywide property tax.
Commissioner Cohen.
Thank you. I have said before, and I will say again, that I'm against doing this. I think that this money has been well spent, and it is an excellent opportunity for us to leverage and get additional dollars in to solve a critical problem. It is my view that $10 million in a $9 billion budget is a pittance compared to the size of this problem. And I think that taking it away is not addressing an issue that we know is front and center in our community's mind. I also agree that we need more money for transportation improvements and infrastructure across the board. I think it's our #1 issue. But you don't have to throw everything else out in the pursuit of solving that problem. And unfortunately, I would love it if we could go through and scrub our budget and come up with enough money to cure the backlog that we have, but it's not even gonna bring us close. What is gonna move the ball is to pass the CIT, and then to buckle down and figure out what we can do to create revenue sources that can fund some of these really big projects. So I'm not going to be in favor of doing this.
Commissioner Myers.
Thank you. Point well said, Commissioner Cohen. I'd just like to share with us, I chair the Affordable Housing Board for the county, and to date in our HOPE funds, we've spent $41,864,182.22. Now, with new units, these funds has helped us with 872 new units at a cost of $34,549,164. Okay? Assist with rehabilitation, 206 units, $3,200,000 $284,018. And then land acquisition, $4,031,000. This just shows what Hope funds, since approved in 2019, how these funds have helped our community in helping people that wanted to get into a low to moderate income, whether multifamily, new construction, housing rehabilitation. And yet tonight, we sit here saying, let's do away with the funds. You know, all across our nation is housing that we hear. I don't care what station you're on, people talking about being hurting, what they cannot afford. And as I tell people all the time, we have the same issue here in Hillsborough County, the same issue as across the nation. And when we can put dollars in to be able to help those individuals, as we sit around this desk, they're looking for the same opportunity to be able to live somewhere decent and affordable, and then their rent is helped, or even to be able to buy a home. So these dollars really help people that we serve. It's not a personal, you know, when I've talked to several developers and the nonprofits, and I'm gonna say, I'm the only one sitting here as a former county employee that worked in housing for a number of years. Through our community development block grant funds, how we help with housing. That is always the #1 issue. It's still the issue today. And yet we want to reduce something, and I'm not gonna support it, reduce something, but I would support maintaining the $2 million that we have in the budget already, because I'd rather not see it at a $0, but $2 million, we still can get some work done. But if we zeroed it out, that meant nothing is going to happen during the next fiscal year. So what we have right now is $2 million. So I'm going to make a substitute motion, Mr. Chair, that we fund it at $2 million of what we have in the budget right now.
Okay, substitute motion by Commissioner Myers is for to fund the Hope funding for $2 million. Seconded by Commissioner Kemp. Commissioner Kemp.
Yes. I have a number of statements to make because there was misinformation, a lot of it, but the state funding that most people refer to as the Sadowski Fund that the voters of Florida voted to have across the state to fund affordable housing decades ago. And for years, the state of Florida has swept the Sadowski funds and left counties with almost none of those funds. And that's one of the reasons that we have this massive shortage. Year after year, Hillsborough County could have made 10 million, 12 million, and instead we had 1 million or maybe zero. And that could have been for 20 years going. And that's one of the reasons that I really wanted to see the county finally supporting affordable housing, because we were losing that investment that the state has given over the years, and it is not giving anywhere. They just keep sweeping those funds as if there isn't a horrific affordable housing crisis across the state of Florida. We got a lot of good information tonight, and first of all, I'll thank everyone once again for coming down here and doing the incredible job that you all do in advocating for those in the community and the needs. We heard a lot of evidence we kind of already know, but just to reiterate, when you have affordable housing in communities, you stabilize families. Children can perform better in schools. They're not transient. They're not homeless. It's stable housing for families. We have fewer ER visits. We have, less sickness, fewer Baker Acts, reducing crime, they said, by 6 to 7%. In the communities around them. I have heard Sheriff Chronister himself, and he's not the only one, say that our jails act as, in many ways, to house many people that have mental health issues, and they get caught up in, instead, our jail system costing us a lot more. I I mean, several years ago, there was a Time magazine cover, The $1 Million Man, and he was a person that had been homeless for several years, and the costs of continually needing services and help when someone can be given a stable place to live, and that can do a whole lot in improving that person's life. I'll say too, this isn't the Hunger Games, like, roads against affordable housing. It's just not there. We will never be able to make our road commitment entirely. It's already impossible because we have, I mean, the need, we've about as much as we built from the just incredible housing. I always say the blistering growth, blistering pace of growth here in Hillsborough County makes keeping up with that practically impossible. And right now, the board's looking at allowing to throw down 12,500 more homes outside of the urban service area when there's not roads in place, and there won't be. And so we put, again, another burden that we cannot meet unless we move and do this in a more a better planned way. I got a letter from Marcia Ryberg. She's an attorney in town. I regret I won't be able to attend tonight's meeting. Of course, it's aggravating to sit in 3 traffic lights before proceeding on one's way. But in the hierarchy of needs, smooth traffic falls below the need for shelter. Only food and water are a higher human need than shelter. To force people's families to live in their cars because they can't find an affordable home is far worse than asking them to sit through a couple of traffic lights. To the person who didn't want to pay for someone else's home, I suspect many voters don't want to pay for roads they won't use because they're located in another overbuilt, newly opened place, parts in the county that they will never use. So, this county fund should be allocated to cover the biggest need, clearly affordable housing. And again, $10 million, it's 1/10 of a mile of a road widening like so many of the roads we face. It's 1/10 of a mile is a very average price for a road widening. I appreciate the information. Ms. Kimberly Overman came. I've always thought that we had something like this, something more than 60,000 people from the Schimberg report, I guess that is, that continually stays, and the need is more than 61,000. It's been for affordable units. That has been a need for a long time, and we are just doing the littlest bit in that. And, that we're seeing, we do see unaffordable housing gets built a lot. That's what our building is about. Affordable housing, we need to do some kinds of subsidies like we do for everything else that we provide. This is my last budget hearing as a commissioner. Since I began here in 2016, HOPE has been here, members of faith communities been here advocating for housing as a need for people, bringing compassion, solutions. The idea of creating this fund came from the grassroots. It came from people in this community that recognized the need, from caring volunteers who wanted to see a better Hillsborough County. And we should all be extremely proud of that. I am extremely proud of that. I hear the argument that affordable housing is a corporate subsidy. I don't think of it that way, unless you're going to say that all the entities and companies building this affordable housing, well, they probably are all corporations. But that's true of practically every thing we do. I mean, building our roads, building our libraries, building our buildings, almost every investment the county makes. We don't have a county building workforce here that can do this or that. It's not county staff that builds the roads. It's not county staff that builds our fire stations, our schools. So I'll just say, only food and water are greater needs than shelter. In Hillsborough County, the need for affordable shelter is urgent. 10 million, as I said, doesn't go very far with transportation projects. And we can go far with this. We can build affordable housing for the $10 million each year, leverage it, as was pointed out, and building safe housing for hundreds of residents to be affordable for years to come. And that's an investment we could all be proud of.
Okay, Commissioner Wostel, then we're going to vote.
Speaking of misinformation, that was a lot of it. Builders are charged impact fees for fire stations and the services. And yes, the county did not have programs in place to properly escalate and review those fees. Administrator Wise has done a good job of going out and making sure that we now go back, I think, every 2 to 3 years and analyze those things. So the builders are being charged for those buildings that are going into place. The voters approved a capital improvement tax for building those public facilities. They did not approve these property taxes, so that's a huge difference. And at the end of the day, it's just simply unethical to have to this continued rebinding of money for future boards based off of a past board's decision. It was just a clever way to circumvent the laws and protections that are in place. So I've said my piece. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. So we have a substitute motion by Commissioner Myers, a second by Commissioner Kemp, and that's to fund the Affordable Housing Trust Fund with $2 million. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 4-3. Commissioners Miller, Cameron Cepeda, and Wostel voted no.
Okay, board members, I'm gonna take a crack at something here and see if this flies. Of the funding that we just reduced the trust fund by, I'm going to pass the gavel and I'm gonna make a motion that we fund these are on the one-time funding list that staff provided that I believe Commissioner Myers originally brought forward, that we fund Tampa Metropolitan Area YMCA $250,000 annually for 4 years, so $250,000 this year, that we fund the Tampa General Hospital Workforce Affordable Housing Project, $500,000 annually for 4 years. The Grace Point Mariposa Women's Psychiatric Hospital, $237,500 for 4 years. That's just under $1 million this year. That we fund $1 million for the Veterans Memorial Park improvements. That is the next phase and what's needed there. So that's just under $2 million. That we have a 0.0250 countywide millage reduction that will be that will cut 3.786 million. So that puts us at 5.786 million, and then the remaining 2.214 million that we split between sidewalks and resurfacing.
Second.
And these were all items, again, that were staff provided that for one-time funding that we can use for, that we just freed up from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and it includes a countywide millage reduction of 0.025 mils. So that's the motion.
We have a motion. Okay, Commissioner Wostel.
Thank you. Speaking of us voting on things, Commissioner Cohen, I hope you keep your energy of things we have no idea what we're voting on or what's being approved, or any of these items or any presentations. I hope that you maintain that same energy as we go into this. We're raising the property taxes still, though, even with this reduction, this point, whatever was just said, right? The overall millage rate increase beyond the rollback rate that is required by the state. We're still raising it.
We're not.
Please be clear about that, Ms.
We are
Lawrence.
not raising the millage rate at all.
Well, there's a rollback rate. What's the rollback rate?
Yeah, the rollback rate is a different calculation that the state requires.
Correct. And anything above that under state law is considered a property tax increase on the voters of Hillsborough County under state law.
I really want to be very clear because I don't want people leaving here thinking that we are raising the millage rate. In fact, we are lowering the millage rate.
Right.
We're not increasing the millage value, but under state law, there's a rollback rate, correct?
There is a rollback rate calculation, and we're
Okay.
going to need a quick break for all of this.
Okay, so there's a rollback rate calculation, and under state law, if the local governments approve anything above that, it's considered a tax increase under state law. Attorney Beck, they seem to have questions. So under state law, there's a rollback rate requirement, correct?
Correct.
And anything above that rollback rate is considered a tax increase burden on that local government.
I think it's the terminology we're having. There will be more more monies collected, but the millage rate does not go up.
I understand that the millage rate is not going up, but there is an increase of what you're taxing them on. So how much above, after Commissioner Hagan's item, are we still above the rollback rate after that, or are we now below it?
We don't know. That's why we have to break.
Okay, well then, yeah, I can't vote on it until I understand how much above or if we're
Let's
below.
take a recess for 15 minutes and come back.
Bonnie, do you need that
Well,
much?
let's see if we're moving forward to see if we should even do the calculation.
Yeah, we need to
Well,
vote
we have a
on it.
motion. Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Chair Hagan, second by
Just
Commissioner
a point of
Kemp.
order.
10 minutes. But yes, we'll have that after.
Just a point of order.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make sure that the recommendation is that the commissioners should knowingly vote on something that was just acknowledged we don't have the information on.
Can I answer that?
Yes.
Only thing we need to take the break for is to do that calculation. All the other things that were discussed, those we could accommodate in the budget.
And that was a part of the less of the HOPE funding that was left you was pulling from.
When it's my turn, I'll speak, but let it go on.
Let's recess for 10 minutes.
We don't need the recess now. We don't need the recess. We need to finish the discussion, vote, and then we'll do the recess, but just keep going around the.
Well, I haven't been given any information, so I'm definitely a hard no.
Okay, Commissioner Miller.
I got into the queue to say exactly that, these are really big decisions, and this goes to my point in our last meeting. We should not be waiting till the very last minute to make decisions like this. It's really just appalling to me.
Okay. Commissioner Hagan.
Okay, a couple of comments. And I've asked staff repeatedly to clarify the difference between property taxes that are collected and a property tax rate or millage rate increase or reduction. Millage rates are not increasing. In fact, as someone indicated, we're cutting the millage rate in the cities. The increase are in values, not millage rate increase. That's causing this. And that's due to homesteaded property assessments increase 3% per Save Our Homes. Non-homesteaded properties permitted to be reassessed up to 10%. Then you have new construction that accounts for the remainder, that and CRA valuation increases. It's not millage rate, property tax rate increases. So I just want to be very clear on that, because sometimes staff, and it's very confusing, as Kevin indicated right before the meeting. But I think to answer the question, the 0.025 mil reduction is a net revenue change of 3.786 million, which compared to the aggregate millage increase that the board approved at the reconciliation meeting, which was 3.02, this brings it down to 2.73. I also want to point out that the reduction that Commissioner Wostel proposed during the reconciliation meeting would have dropped it down to 2.55%. So it's not quite as low as what he proposed at the reconciliation, but it's still a significant reduction. So I just want to point that out, and then should the board approve this, then we can take the recess and unless Tom already has it, but that's all my comments for now.
Okay.
Yeah, we think we're close to the number, but we still want to take a break just to make sure we're correct.
Commissioner Wostel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So at the end of the day, then we're still taking a sum greater, and since it sounds like this is going to get rammed through, and I will likely consider bringing a motion to vacate the chair at the next official Boulder County Commissioners meeting after this. This item is 4 random things that we've never heard anything about. One of them I like a lot. I think they do good for the community, but the taxpayers have subsidized them over the past 33 years, close to the tune of my calculations of $600 million already. Those are things that have to be vetted and a full picture shown. While we have many desperate needs in Hillsborough County, that we are helping a lot of these good organizations to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars that have not been spoke about once or demonstrated. There is no way that a yes vote on this is being done from an informed position of what benefit it's going to have and what burdens it may or may not create on the taxpayers of Hillsborough County. It is extremely irresponsible, and I do not support the motion.
Okay, we ready to vote? Okay, please record your vote.
Motion carried 4-3. Commissioners Miller, Cameron Cepeda, and Wostel voted no.
Okay, Bonnie.
Now I'm sorry, you go back to you.
Do you need to? You don't need to take the break now, do you? We need to also vote on the flag items, right?
Sure. Flag items, good.
All right. Can we have a motion on the section by Commissioner Kemp, second by Commissioner Cohen, on the flag list? No comments. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay. So how much time do you need to?
How about 8:50? 13 minutes? You don't need that much? 8:45.
Okay. Yeah, we'll adjourn until 8:45. final budget hearing. Kevin, you prepared to read us the legalese? Yep.
Commissioners, prior to approving the millage resolution, we need to read into the record certain information. The taxing authority is Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. The aggregate rollback rate is 8.5785 mils. The proposed aggregate millage of 8.8094 represents a 2.69% increase from the aggregate rollback rate. The millages to be adopted for tax year 2024 are countywide general revenue, 5.6026 mils. Unincorporated area municipal services taxing unit, 4.4745 mils. Library services, 0.5583 mils. Voted general obligation debt for environmentally sensitive lands, 0.0604 mils. Voted general obligation debt for unincorporated area parks and recreation, 0.0259 mils.
Okay, I now entertain a motion to adopt the millage resolution as presented by staff.
Move for adoption.
And the resolution has been reviewed for legal sufficiency by the county attorney's office. So that's a motion. Commissioner Myers, second Commissioner Kemp, Commissioner Wostel.
As was just read, this is an increase, and I will not be supporting the motion or the budget. Thank you.
Okay, as staff and myself stated earlier, this includes a millage rate or property tax cut. There are increase in values, which represent the state listed increase. So we got a motion and a second. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 4-3. Commissioners Miller, Cameron Cepeda, and Wostel voted no.
Okay, I now entertain a motion to adopt the budget resolution as presented by staff. The resolution has been reviewed for legal sufficiency by the county attorney's office. Motion, Commissioner Kemp, second Commissioner Cohen. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 5-2. Commissioners Miller and Wostel voted no.
Okay, that concludes the public hearing. We will now reopen the CIP public hearing. The purpose of tonight's public hearing is to take public comment on the proposed fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 29 capital improvement program prior to board adoption. The Director of Management Budget will present an overview of the proposed capital improvement program.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kevin Brickey, Management and Budget. The Capital Improvement Program is a 5-year program from FY25 through FY29 and totals $4.9 billion. We have an active CIP. FY25 includes funding for 1 new fire station at Sly Anderson Road, 3 replacement stations, improvements to the medical examiner and jail facilities, relocation of the sheriff's operation centers, additional dollars for transportation, and various parks improvements and stormwater improvements. At this time, it would be appropriate for you to take public comment.
Okay, we had a few folks that have signed up. I think most of them have left, but we'll open up the public hearing. We have Gerald White. I don't see Mr. White. Robert Boulot. I don't see Robert. Kendall Perez. Laurie Jones Aluku. Denise Herndon. No. Autumn Williams. Thomas Spalding. Dustra Haynes. Deborah Owens, she was virtual. Is Deborah on the line?
Deborah Owens did not sign it.
All right, thank you. Kimberly Overman. Okay. Narrowly, is there no virtual for Narrowly?
Narrowly did not sign.
All right, thank you. Chris Borzel. Okay, this concludes public comment. So this time I'd entertain a motion to adopt the capital improvement program
Second.
resolution as presented by staff. The resolution has been reviewed for legal sufficiency by the county attorney's office. We got a motion, Commissioner Kemp, second Commissioner Cohen. Commissioner Wostel.
Administrator-wise, there's several million more in here, and I'll just point out the African American Center, and it's getting CIT funds. It's one-time dollars, but we have ample reserves of countywide funds. The CIT funds could be used on infrastructure in the unincorporated area, correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, is there like a budgetary reason that you guys just didn't use the ample CIT reserves for these one-time funds that she's asking for? Or is it, yeah?
Yep. It is our recommendation to use CIT funds for this purpose. It is an eligible purpose, also countywide, as you mentioned. I feel that the reserves that we have proposed in the budget are solid, and we shouldn't use them for a purpose if we have the CIT funds already available.
Is there any proviso language for this organization in their P3 deal that says, hey, if you don't come up with 51% of the funds, if you don't come up with operating funds to ensure there's not an additional financial impact on the taxpayers, that if you don't do that, we're not releasing the funds? Do you guys do proviso language like that on these deals, since it's my first one?
I think those are very good questions. This particular project is only at the design stage. We have not even bid for construction yet, so these monies are only for design at this point.
But it says we have 12.7 million in there already, and that there's a nonprofit that's already been founded. It has a board of current and former elected officials. So, I mean, it seems like that should have already been done if we're building these huge unknown number. We don't even know what we're going to, that we say, hey, if you don't come up with this, you don't get this.
Right. An agreement will have to come before the board at a later time when we do bid the contract and have an agreement with that nonprofit. That will happen. It just is not the appropriate time yet for that to occur. And a lot of those monies were from monies that we received from the state and from other grants.
Yeah, I think that this is an important item for taxpayers to see, beside the fact that it's probably a good project, is that I think that it's bad business that, so we have 2 million of CIT that could go to the billions of dollars of reserves that we have in the unincorporated area, billions of dollars of backlogs that we have in the unincorporated area. So we have this 2 million, there's another 2 million going towards it, several million more maybe going to other projects I haven't looked at, that if they don't have all the money, they will take this money and they will put it into the CIP. Some money for decades sitting in there depreciates. They try to manage that as much as they can. The CIP is vast. And so while all of our current needs, I believe that right now we didn't even fund our annual road maintenance and repair more than 33% this year. So that's going to be another $40 million of backlog on the $3 billion I presented last week. We will allow this $4 million to depreciate in value, and the needs from you for maintenance will continue to increase because of these practices. The CIP is very convoluted. It's just a very massive document. I've been trying to analyze it. There's 15 years past items that have funding in there that it's not even fully funded. There's ghost projects in there from past taxes that didn't make it across the finish line. It's very, very difficult for anyone to look at this budget and have a clear picture of what's real and what isn't, and understand that there are potentially tens of millions of dollars that are collecting dust and depreciating in this CIP that could be going towards the desperate sidewalks that you need that we're getting sued over, the intersections that you're having unnecessary loss of life at. And I just think that we're so far behind that we don't really have the freedom to keep baking in millions of dollars a year that could be going towards immediate needs right now, which was what that tax was used for. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Don't see any other comments. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 5-2. Commissioners Cameron, Cepeda, and Wostel voted no.
Okay, that concludes our budget public hearing. Thank you.